I want to begin by welcoming you all to the South Yorkshire Cultural and Creative Industries Summit. It's genuinely fantastic to be here and to be in an actual cinema. It feels like quite a long time since I've been in a cinema. And this really is a very exciting day and a really exciting event. And I'm really proud to be able to support it. I do want to take the opportunity to send my warmest thanks to everybody who's been involved in making it happen. And I especially want to thank my old friend Darren Henley from the Arts Council England and Caroline Norbury from Creative England, who've made a big effort to come to Sheffield today to show their support for South Yorkshire's creative sector. Partners such as the Arts Council, Creative England, our great cultural institutions, our creative businesses and cultural bodies always say that we have something special here in South Yorkshire. But they also say that the region needs to do more, to invest more, to build stronger partnerships, to have a vision for what role creative and cultural organisations, businesses and people will play in the future of this city and in our wider region. And I agree with that. I agree with it because I'm a very strong believer in the power of our creative industries to boost not only our economy, but also to lift our character and our spirit as a region. That's why I'm determined to do what I can as mayor to bring that to life. And that's part of the purpose of why we're here today. And that's why now, for the first time, we've got people in my mayoral office working very hard to make things happen. Now, we hear a lot about levelling up. And I was in Parliament just a couple of days ago, calling on the government to stand by its commitments to level up the north of England. But I think that levelling up has to be much more than just an economic project. It's got to be also about improving how people feel about the places where they live. Culture and that spark of creativity adds real colour and real depth to people's lives. And it makes a place somewhere people want to live, to work, to study, and to invest in. I get that. And I also get that the past 18 months, of course, they've been extremely tough for everybody. But as you are all well aware, the creative industries have suffered more than most at the hands of the pandemic. Venues closed, production stopped, festivals called off, gigs cancelled. Throughout all of this, and up against all of this adversity, you have found truly innovative new ways to create impressive programmes and events and to connect with people right across South Yorkshire at what has been a deeply challenging and for many a deeply isolating time. So, to recognise this hardship and this innovation, I've announced £1 million of investment that we will ring-fence specifically to support the sector to help rebuild from the pandemic. This money will focus on smaller organisations, providing grant funding, and will help bring life and vibrancy through the arts, culture, and creativity to improve the lives that people live in our villages, towns, and our city. And with Caroline and her team in Creative England, we're forging an exciting new partnership to deliver bespoke support for our creative industries, providing expert mentoring and advice. Taken together, this is, I hope, a significant step forward in our support for the sector. It's nothing like as much as I know that we need, but it is at least a good start, and one that I have had to put my shoulder to the wheel to get over the line. Before I go and hand over the microphone to people who are much more creative than myself, I did just want to take a moment to recognise that we wouldn't be here today without Jamie. From his first steps on the stage at the Crucible to the West End, a feature film produced and filmed here in Sheffield, and soon to Broadway. Wow. Everybody's talking about Jamie embodies everything that is wonderful about the creative industries here in Sheffield and South Yorkshire. Our breadth of talent, our innovation, our inclusivity, our sense of fun. And I hope that this is the start of very many similar Sheffield and South Yorkshire productions. And I do want to take the opportunity today to send my warmest congratulations to everyone who's been involved with this amazing project. Creativity and innovation is part of our DNA. It's steeped in every part of our region, and the creative industries, I am certain, will be a crucial part of the story that we tell the world. It's time for us to tell it with passion and with confidence, and to step out of the shadows of others. So, with the spotlight shining on Sheffield and on all of South Yorkshire, thanks to the huge success of Everyone's Talking About Jamie, let's seize this opportunity to forge a renewed, collaborative and successful creative sector in our region. And I'll be doing everything I can to support. Thank you. Enjoy the day.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for inviting me. As Dan said, it's lovely to be here and to be meeting people in the flesh. Not too much flesh, but, lovely to see you all. I'm the Chief Executive of both Creative England and the Creative Industries Federation, both organisations working together as part of the not-for-profit group, Creative UK. Independent of government, we are the network for the UK's creative industries. We champion culture and creativity, and we invest in creative people and the businesses that they build. Our campaigning and advocacy is driven by our members, who provide real-time insight and data on the most pressing issues for the sector. And those members include some of the largest creative businesses in the country, from Warner Brothers and TikTok, and cultural organisations such as like the V&A and the Tate, Edinburgh Fringe, the Baltic, all the way through to small and medium-sized businesses and community arts organisations, so a real spread. But we're not just an advocacy body. We provide tangible, on-the-ground business support programmes and, crucially, investment. In the last 10 years, we've invested over 20 million into small creative businesses, predominantly in companies outside of London and the South East. And that investment has leveraged an additional 100 million. So basically, for every £1 we've invested, we've seen an additional match of about £4 from the private sector. Now, much of our work during the pandemic has been to provide a voice to the very many individuals and businesses who have been severely affected. In the summer of 2020, we worked with Oxford Economics to forecast the projected impact of COVID-19 on the creative industries. And those findings offered a real stark warning of the losses to jobs and revenues we'd experience without further support. Thankfully, the government's ears were open to those very real dangers, and we and many, many, many others in the sector were alerting them to. And we had the unprecedented intervention, such as the 1.6 billion Cultural Recovery Fund and the furlough scheme, which have been enormously welcome. Yes, of course, there have been far too many who have fallen through the gaps within the support that's been offered, and the challenges are, of course, far from over. But I think we can agree that there are large parts of our sector that most certainly have been helped by that much needed support. But as we look to recover following the pandemic and consider how the creative industries can not only survive but thrive, I think the narrative of the creative sector in need of being saved is really as unhelpful as it is untrue. The picture of our sector as some sort of pity case seeking to be bailed out at every opportunity has long been etched into the public consciousness, but it's simply not accurate and very unhelpful. In July, we published a report examining not only the impact of COVID-19, but also the power and the potential of the creative industries to bounce back. Our research showed that what many of us really have known for a long time, far from subsidised lovies, the creative industries are really essential to our country's economy. And right now, as we look at the UK's post-Brexit, post-pandemic future, we are the thing that is needed now more than ever. Not just to make people happy, though don't get me wrong, that's very important, but to rebuild the UK. That's because the creative industries create jobs, they build communities, and they generate great ideas that can be exported worldwide, as well as making a real difference locally. And we do know that the UK does make an awful lot of money out of creativity. Our research modelled supply chains and revealed that pre-pandemic, the creative sector supported huge parts of our economy. For every £1 the creative industries contributed directly in GDP, Our spending power resulted in an extra 50 pence being generated for the wider economy through our supply chains. That's businesses who supply goods or services to the creative sector. In 2019, this added up to a whopping 178 billion, which is 9% of the UK economy, 9%. Our new data also showed that in addition to the 2.1 million jobs that existed in the creative industries prior to the pandemic, a further 1.4 million roles were also directly supported by the sector through its supply chains. This makes a combined total of 3.5 million, or in other words, 1 in 10 of all jobs in the UK. So I would say that makes us pretty essential. And that's before we even consider the many industries that significantly benefit from culture and creativity, like tourism and hospitality. Now, I don't want to underplay the impact of COVID-19 on the creative industries, which for some parts have been utterly devastated, and they will need ongoing help to rebuild, probably for the rest of this decade. Figures from our research partner, Oxford Economics, estimate that the sector has lost nearly 12 billion in GVA, with job losses expected to reach over 110,000 by the end of the year. I do firmly believe, however, that we have the ingenuity, the resilience, talent and drive to return to a high growth trajectory once more, and our research backs that up. In fact, our report projects that with the right investment, the creative industries could recover faster than the UK economy as a whole. But we have to be mission focused in our application. So let's assume that, for example, by 2025, spend and investment in the sector is 20% higher than it was pre-pandemic. We estimate that we could generate an additional 300,000 new jobs and over 132 billion in GVA. That's 28 billion more than in 2020 and a growth of over 26%. So how do we get there? How do we unlock the bags of potential found here in Sheffield, in Doncaster, Rotherham and Barnsley? I want to draw on a local example from a completely different sector. Now, a former colleague of mine used to work for Yorkshire Forward. For those of you who don't remember the regional development agencies, Yorkshire Forward was one of 9, I think, economic regional development organisations set up by the Blair government. They played a really important role, joining up local economic strategies and using public funding to crowd in private investment. He told me the story of the conversations that took place between a small group of industrialists in South Yorkshire, between them and Sheffield University and Yorkshire Forward, which resulted in the RDA investing initially, somewhere between 10 to 15 million to set up the Advanced Manufacturing Research Centre, which now sits on the cusp between Rotherham and Sheffield. The driver behind that investment was an attempt to rebuild and reshape the industrial landscape and skills base of South Yorkshire, an attempt to create new jobs in the wake of the death of industrial industries in steel and coal. Many people thought the idea was balmy and a waste of money. Yet 20 years on, the AMRC not only employs thousands of local people in skilled occupations, it is also a magnet for international talent, creating spin-out companies and bringing investment from across the globe into South Yorkshire. When we launched our report in July on the opportunities for growth driven by culture and creativity, one national newspaper accused us, or me, of seeking a magic bullet. But there is no magic bullet, and certainly not one that relies on government money. I would refute the accusation that the culture and creative industries ask for handouts. But what we do ask for is meaningful, targeted investment in creative ideas and creative skills, similar to the arguments behind the creation of the AMRC. And we make this ask because our country excels at creativity, and there is a global market desperate for it, waiting to buy the films, the games, the art, theatre, music and design that we create. Public money can be a catalyst for growth and investment, but it is not the end goal. And the government knows this too. The Prime Minister's 10-point plan for a green industrial revolution outlined 12 billion from government because they believe it will leverage 3 times as much money from the private sector, creating 250,000 jobs, less, by the way, than the 300,000 jobs that could be created in the creative industries. Well, I think we need a creative revolution to run alongside our green one. We need a recognition of the role our sector can play in driving the UK's recovery and we need the resources to unleash that power. Because the potential of the creative sector extends far beyond economics and employment. As we wonder at the developments of AI, it is creative skills that are most needed to build that future-proof workforce that is resistant to automation. In tackling the biggest problems that we face as a society, from climate change to housing shortages, it is creative ideas that will fuel our innovation to find new and sustainable solutions. And as a post-Brexit UK looks to define its global role, it is our cultural heritage and creativity that will be key to re-establishing our position on that international stage. Creativity is sewn into the fabric of our country, and it should be flourishing in every corner of the UK, not just in London or in metropolitan centres, but on every village green and town square, binding us together. You can see that happening now throughout South Yorkshire, from the outstanding work that's been developing at the Crucible, the brilliant outreach work for the screen industries undertaken by people here at the Showroom and Workstation and Screen Yorkshire, the DMC co-working hubs and the Makerspace Labs in Barnsley, the ambitious plans for a cultural quarter in Doncaster, and the disruptive new experimental studio, The Forge, also in Doncaster. It's clear that the raw materials exist here and now. And let's not forget this region's amazing musical heritage and the fact that you are also home to the fastest growing games company in the UK, Sumo Games. Sumo is now one of the biggest employers in South Yorkshire. Can you imagine that proposition being on the drawing board of a public investment strategy 20 years ago? Frankly, I can't even imagine it 10 years ago. But the rate of development of technology and globalisation has meant growth at speeds previously unknown. The report I discussed earlier found that across Yorkshire and the Humber, the creative industries contributes extensively to local GVA. You contributed 3.2 billion to the UK economy and employed 121,000 people. And for every £1 generated, you generated an additional £1.40 in GVA elsewhere in the region's wider economy. But it's not all about money. As we've reopened over the summer, we have already witnessed how culture and entertainment are encouraging people to re-engage with their local places, drawing them back to the high street, to public transport and to restaurants and retail. On Monday evening, I was really pleased and delighted to attend the London premiere of Everybody's Talking About Jamie, and I know that there were others here today who were there. But for those who weren't and who are going to see the film tonight, I can tell you that both the film and the entire evening were fabulous, vibrant, escapist, full of joy. Everything, absolutely everything we've been missing in the last couple of years. And without giving away the headline, I'm sure you all know the story, but the headline of the story is very much about being true to who you are. And I think the film is a real credit to South Yorkshire's creative community, and huge congratulations to Warp Films and everybody involved in bringing this wonderful story to the big screen. I think if the UK truly wants to level up, if we really want to regenerate towns and city centres in every region, then actually being true to who you are is key to that success. Backing local people to make the best creative and economic decisions, owning their own future by investing in it. The creative industries can no longer be viewed as a nice to have. We're a must have for our society, for our economy, for our mental health, and for the future of the UK. I believe that if we invest in creativity, we won't just level up the country, we will actually build a far, far better one. So thank you very much for listening to me, and really looking forward to everything that you've got to say this afternoon. So thank you very much.
I mean, you make such a powerful case there about the economic impacts of creativity and culture, and we kind of know it, obviously, but when I hear those huge figures, and the reams of them, it really brings it home to me. What I loved that you said was we shouldn't be asking for handouts. We wash our own faces, they say up here.
Yeah.
So as we don't have you for very long, what I wanted to ask was, so on behalf of maybe there's small businesses in the audience or small enterprises, how do you get investment ready?
Well, you have to look at what you've got first off, really, in terms of, what is it that you're absolutely expert at? And then you have to think about who you're going to sell that to, and you have to use that basically to create your plan. So many businesses have great ideas, but they don't necessarily think about, what's the market for that? How are they going to commercialize it, and so on. And so you can have sort of small success. If you really want sort of bigger success, yes, you can grow organically, but I think there are very few businesses that we've worked with that have really scaled without taking on additional money, yeah? And in order to do that, you've got to sort of move your head out of sort of making that one product or that one thing for that particular moment that you're used to think about a much sort of broader market. And you have to also think about surrounding yourself with the right people who are going to help you to grow that. And I think for lots of creative businesses, that's sort of where they get stuck, because everything is really based around the creative talents of a couple of people who get on and have worked together for years and so on. And then all of a sudden, if you want to take somebody else's money, you've got to understand what they want out of it. You've got to be willing to decide whether or not that's right for you as well, what you're going to give up. And then you've got to sort of work through a sort of a partnership where everybody's getting what they want, and you are working probably in a bit of a foreign environment, because all of a sudden you're being asked, you're not even just being asked, but you have to do all sorts of things that perhaps you didn't have to do previously. I think it's different for different types of businesses. So investment readiness for a games company is very different from, I don't know, investment readiness for a sort of like a creative agency or a television production company or something like that. But I think those sorts of general principles around finding the right type of money with the right type of people behind it for that particular need. But Darren probably has a...
Absolutely. Well, I was going to ask you from a funder's perspective, because I know, and there'll be people in the audience who've accessed CRF, and I know how much difference. I've got to say thank you to you and your staff who worked so tirelessly on the first 2 rounds. But I mean, it's made such a difference. It's been the difference between, existing and not existing for a lot of organisations. So how is it from a funder's perspective? What do organisations need to do to be fundable?
And Caroline makes the case extremely well. She's made a very strong economic argument, but there are always those other arguments on top that we're looking for. I think there is a real interest in places, and the Mayor this afternoon has outlined that. And I was in Barnsley this morning across South Yorkshire. It's an exciting story. As you said, we've got 2 priority places here in Barnsley and Rotherham, and we're looking for what people can do over and above just the economic case. So for me, it is about people's health and well-being. It is about building a narrative for a place. I think there's an amazing narrative coming out of this part of the world. Everyone's talking about Sheffield, and that's something that's really, really important. And I think also we talk about the possibilities for people who live here. So young people, their learning, their education, their skills, and actually being able to do the things they want to do in the places where they were born and near to places where they live. You don't have to go to London. You can do it here in South Yorkshire, and that's what we're looking for. We want to invest more to be able to tell that story.
Absolutely, hallelujah. And to make the arts and creativity and culture a viable career option, that would be wonderful. I wished I'd had that when I was about to choose what I was going to do. So yeah, and wouldn't it be lovely to change the narrative from dancing in the dole queue, from the good old full Monty, to stepping into the spotlight in sequins? I mean, that's the dream. And I wondered about, and I feel duty-bound to ask this, what about the voices that aren't in the room? So the voices that might not be in this room, the people that aren't included in those conversations. How do we include those? What encouragement would you give us, or tips?
I think we have a duty to reach out. So it's not about people coming to us, it's about us going to them. I think it's really, really important that we talk to people on their terms, and we understand that we as spenders of taxpayers' money, National Lottery players' money, need to reflect the whole of this country, the way it looks and feels, and we need everybody's culture to be valued and to be invested in. And so that for us is really, really important. And our new 10-year strategy, that's very much the heart of that.
Yeah. And I guess it's helping people step into those conversations, because that's it might be easy for me to do that because I'm used to working in those ways and I understand the language, but I mean, the cultural language, not even literally the language, but there are barriers for people and I guess the barriers are even more if you're trying to access private sector investment.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the real challenges, I think, in the creative industries is that there are lots of great ideas, but basically the finance sector just doesn't get its head around it. I mean, our IP is intangible. They don't understand our business models. Our cash flow in bits of it are lumpy. They're not a series of businesses that are suited to actually what remains a sort of a 19th century business model in terms of finance. I think that is changing. I think you see more and more investors who are looking to invest outside of their comfort zone. So they are looking outside of London in the southeast, or that bit of, that Cambridge, Oxford bit. There's definitely an increase in terms of private investors and actually institutional investors looking outside of those usual areas. But the truth is that if you are a startup in East London, you are much more likely to bump into a venture capitalist or a wealthy individual than if you're in Rotherham. And as Darren says, it's about making sure that the thing that we do is to link people up. We're a big convener and a connector, and often because of the way our money is structured, which is usually through some sort of it's on an investment basis. Quite often, the proposition isn't right for us, but we can connect that business to somebody who it is right for, really. And I think that it's as much about creating an ecosystem where you bring people together to find the right sort of opportunities. And I do feel, personally, in the sorts of conversations I have with investors, I feel that they are much more open now to investing in creative businesses, but they need confidence, and so that's quite often why what the sort of role we play with using public funds is to catalyse that private investment, because we sort of soften the risk. We're seeing creative businesses all of the time, so we've invested in about 400 or 500 businesses in the last 10 years. And so we know what we're talking about. We're an honest broker, so we're not going to rip anybody off, and we're not after it for a profit. But we can then, that means that we can sort of bring those commercial players in and then leave the field. And I do think that there are more and more and more of those sorts of hybrid companies that will, they will be catalysed by something like an Arts Council grant or a bit of funding from the BFI. And, that's really important in helping them to develop their practice and to develop that new product and so on. But then there's the next stage, which is how to get them out into the market. And quite often, it's that bit of help that is really, really vital, because otherwise all they'll do is they'll be just in a cycle of going back for more and more catalyst funding, and there isn't enough to go around, really.
And it's a story we hear time and time again where people are dependent on funding, that, you spend half your time putting the bids in and, doing evaluation and stuff. So, yeah, how we break out of that cycle. I've got my eye on the time for you, Caroline, because I know you've got to go and get a very important train.
I'm so sorry. I
bet you wish you could stay for the rest.
This was a bit of a last-minute squeeze-in.
And we've got so many questions, but as we go through, I will pick them up, so apologies, but I want to make the most of it. So, Darren, you're going to stay on for the panel, so we're going to take a deep dive look into the story of Jamie, which, as I say, I went to see right at the very beginning in the first run, and then got invited to a secret announcement at the Crucible, which was the very exciting announcement that they were going to make a film. So I feel like I've been there from the beginning. But let's finish with this short discussion. Caroline, I'll ask you, because I know you've got to go. What encouragement would you give to the people in this room as we look forward to this next exciting bit?
I really think that one of the good things that happened through the pandemic was a sort of a commitment to doing things differently. I was in so many conversations where the sort of narrative was, let's take this moment to look at all the things that we buggered up basically before, and where there were imbalances of power, where there was a real need for more inclusivity, and coming out of this, let's do things better. And I really believe that. And I sense that now in terms of all of the people that we talk to. The biggest conversation people want to have with me is around how can we be more inclusive and diverse, and how can you help us in the journey to net zero? What is it that you're doing that we can feed off on that? They don't come and talk to me about money. They want help and support with those things. So I think that this idea of creativity as an important horizontal, across all parts of life, I feel that that's got more traction, and I think that can only be positive, actually, for us all.
Fantastic, what a rallying call. Yeah, I think that deserves a round of applause.
Thank you.
And Darren, I'll just end that very tantalisingly short, but what's your encouragement? I'm sure we'll hear more as we go through the day from you.
What do you want to be famous for? Tell your stories. One of the questions people say to me, why that place? And I say, why not? And I think you should believe in yourselves. You have amazing creativity here. There's a heritage in South Yorkshire of people making things. It was manufacturing one day. Now it's creative industries. Now it's where artists are coming making their best work. We believe in that. We want to invest in it. You've got great local authority and university and further education infrastructure here. Make the most of it. I think this is a place where, we'll come together maybe in 10 years' time, where you have another photograph. I've had more hair in that photo than I have these days. I don't know. I just noticed, but I'll even less hair. And we'll come together in 10 years' time, and we'll be able to tell that story, and we'll have mapped it along the way. And I think that's the really exciting thing. This is about a place that there's loads of possibilities. There's lots of aspiration. What I'm seeing in the 6 years that I've done this job is that actually some of those aspirations are now coming true. This wouldn't have happened 6 years ago. It's happening now, and it'll be even better in 6 years' time.
Amazing, fantastic. And I hope in 10 years' time that it's our children and our grandchildren who are sitting here, and we're just clapping proudly from the wings. But thank you so much. I know you've got to dash. Darren, you're going to stay there, but thank you, Caroline.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for your time.
Okay.
And safe travels.
Whilst everyone's getting settled, I'll introduce myself. That kind of is my job title, but it doesn't really matter what my job title is because I do loads of stuff because we at the BFI do loads of stuff. So the British Film Institute, mainly we're here to champion the art of film and storytelling. We're a charity governed by Royal Charter, which basically means we definitely have to do it. We look after the National Film and TV Archive. We run the BFI South Bank. We have major festivals like the BFI London Film Festival, which will be happening here as well. The Showroom is a partner cinema for us, so you'll be able to watch all the films in our headline galas from October 6th, I think. Don't know why any of you would know. I don't know why I'm looking at you. October 6th. We have education programs, training initiatives. We run a VOD platform. But we're also the industrial lead for film, importantly. And so we're kind of the industry's link, the film industry's link to government. And try to be that intermediary. So we fight the industry's case and we deliver bad news back to industry or good news back to industry. And we invest national lottery funding. We are a distributor of national lottery funding, much like the Arts Council, and we do that in film development, film production, and audiences as well. And how we invest in audiences is literally we fund cinemas like the Showroom, we fund film festivals like Sheffield Doc Fest, we fund community cinema initiatives like the Sheffield-based Cinema for All. We fund film distributors to make sure their films absolutely definitely come to Sheffield and bring talent with them, and we do a lot of stuff. And then over the last year, we've also been delivering pandemic response funds as well, or over the last 18 months, actually. It's going on, isn't it? This is why I look nothing like, Darren and I look nothing like our pictures anymore, because I've been head of the Cultural Recovery Fund for the BFI. Darren's been overseeing it for the Arts Council. We met for the first time in person last week. We've had 18 months of Zooms, boards, investment subcommittees, public accounts committees. It's but he is I can confirm he's a real life person. A couple of the pandemic response funds, so beyond the Cultural Recovery Fund, which I'm so pleased about, and because we obviously, it wasn't a given that the government would give this huge amount of funding into the cultural infrastructure of the UK. We've been overseeing the English portion of it. But I was just so glad to get independent cinemas in the mix because, I felt like independent cinemas were sitting at a table where, we don't have a Royal Academy or the Tate. We're funding the Parkway Barnsley and the Light Cinema in Sheffield and the Showroom Sheffield. So I felt like a bit of an outlier, maybe a bit of I was trying to think of an analogy, like a sexy cousin. No, that's weird. I've made it weird. You know, we're just kind of like, people want independent cinemas to still be here on the other side of things. That's the main point. So I'm so proud to be, you know, letting all of those cinemas know how important, how valued, and, you know, that they absolutely needed to survive this. And it looks like we're gonna be able to do that. We've also been overseeing and lobbied for and received the Production Restart Scheme, which is basically an insurance scheme so that productions could still happen. And one of the recipients is the Bradford set Clive Barnard's film Ali and Ava. That's going to be playing in the London Film Festival as well. So this is just to give the productions the confidence to continue to shoot and to actually make the films under these restrictions and uncertain times. It's been hugely successful. Okay, so my main aim with this panel is to try to paint a picture about how everything is connected, how something like Jamie, it doesn't just come from nowhere. It takes the time it takes and the interventions necessary to build to this moment, and how public and commercial funds ultimately complement each other. And above all, how a culturally rich place like Sheffield is intrinsic in the creation process. You know, nothing is by accident. Well, maybe some things, you guys. So if you can all introduce yourselves, starting with Caroline, work our way down, and then we'll get really stuck into it, and I'll try and keep an eye on this as well. So Caroline.
So my name is Caroline Cooper-Charles, and I am Head of Creative at Screen Yorkshire, and we are the lead body for the screen industries in Yorkshire and Humber.
Hey, I'm Mark Herbert, born in Doncaster, live in Sheffield. Get that one in for South Yorkshire. Yeah, I'm joint CEO of Warp Films Limited and producer of the film everybody's talking about, Jamie.
Hi everyone, I'm Dan Bates. I'm the Chief Executive at Sheffield Theatres. Not born in Sheffield, I live in Rotherham.
And I'm still Darren from the Arts Council.
Doncaster, Mike, you know there's a new cinema in Doncaster.
I hear all about, and the Forge.
Yeah, no, that's because of the Cultural Recovery Fund.
My Auntie Sandra told me about it.
Who did?
My Auntie Sandra. She lives in Donny.
Okay. Right, so Darren, I'm going to start with you, because as funders, we always, you know, I mean, Caroline was doing a bit of this, you know, it's not, you know, it's, we feel the need to justify ourselves and why public investment is important. So I've always got a kind of couple of go-to examples where I try to explain, you know, and it's, you know, your film, Mark, so Bunny and the Bull. We always talk about that at the BFI because, you know, Bunny and the Bull, hope you don't mind me saying, you know, bit of a weird film, debut, but, you know, enough creativity and talent was on show in that film. I had to sell it into cinemas. That was my old job, was trying to sell all of Mark's other films into cinemas. And I didn't really know how to sell it, but I did my best. But, you know, ultimately, enough talent, you know, showed the confidence to make Paddington. And the team went on to do that. And, you know, I mean, they even recycled some of the jokes that, you know, from that film. So, you know, I use that. I've got this other example of God's Own Country, where it was like my first week at the BFI, and I had to read God's Own Country. And, you know, I was asked editorial what I thought of it. And I think this is in confidence. And I was like, oh, it's really sexy and it's really great. And it's like, it's, you know, so sincere and true, but I don't think we should make it. Because no one will ever watch it. And my boss was like, no, we're allowed to make films like that here. Like, I come from the commercial sector, and it was like, this was a safe place. It's public money. We can do these things, and it's okay if no one watches it. But actually, people really did want to watch it. So, you know, use examples like that. So, Darren, what are your examples? Like, when you're asked to justify, why are you giving all this public money away? What's it for?
Well, I don't think we give it away. So I believe we invest it. I believe we don't subsidise. I think we invest in creative ideas and creative talent, and we invest in it for lots of ways. And there are economic justifications for doing that, but there are other reasons for doing it as well. And actually, the fact of creativity and having creativity in our lives is one of them. The education route, the placemaking route. But I mean, we've got a real life example here. You know, this was a film project that started out in you know, Sheffield Theatres, and it would not have happened without a publicly invested theatre. Wouldn't have happened, that theatre wouldn't be here without the public investment. So for me, it's a brilliant example, probably the best example that we've got right now because it's so live. And what I love is actually, there's so many, often people try to make sort of binary decisions and say, well, if it's publicly invested, it then can't be commercial. But actually, why not? Why can't we have something that's become very commercial? The commercial theatre world came into that, the film world has come into that, and it's brilliant. And what you've actually got, the central part of that is you've got a great creative team who came up with a great creative set of ideas, and they've executed it brilliantly in each of the forms that it's been on, whether it be on the stage or in the cinema. But Dan will know much more about that process of how it actually came to pass. But from our point of view, we're really proud that taxpayers and National Lottery players' money has made something like this come to life and is enriching people's lives by having a good time.
And when did you at the Arts Council first become aware of Jamie and think something's happening here, it's working?
Well, it would be when Dan and his team would have told us about it. They were at the creative start of that. For us, we invest in great organisations with great leaders, and you have, to spare his blushes here in Sheffield, one of our big producing theatres in this country, really well led as a business and really well led creatively, and they come across this stuff. And they say, this is what we're going to do. And actually what we're there to do is to put the money in. We're not there to tell them which projects to invest in or not to invest in. That's what they do, and they do it brilliantly.
I mean, that would be a great point to go to Dan, but I'm not ready to go to Dan yet. I want to talk a bit more widely about on those points there, because your new strategy in terms of Let's Create has identified other areas. For you there's a bit of a clunky question, but Sheffield to me is, I don't think anything can happen in isolation necessarily. Like Sheffield theatres, the Showroom, there are a lot of cinemas in this town. There's a rich cultural heritage that we've been talking about today. Like, I think one thing equals the other. It's inspiration ultimately. Is this, is Sheffield a prototype almost for what you want to achieve? And do you believe that something like, am I right, or do you think it's actually creativity is anywhere?
I think creativity is everywhere, but I think what happens is you get places where at different times they become more investable propositions, and what you see is a coalescing. So you go around, you just go down the street and you've got a fantastic visual art gallery. Here. You've got two universities here who are bringing, students of all sorts of art forms together. You've got great theatres. We've got some really other really interesting things starting to happen. I was in Barnsley this morning. It's really interesting what's happening there just down the road. So for me, what I see is artists of all sorts tend to coalesce together and they feed off each other. And you see that when you go to maker studios and things like that, where actually they start to come together and they start to use each other's services in one way or another. And this is also a place where the music scene is very vibrant, and there's a writing and literature scene here that's very, very vibrant as well, and spoken word scene. So I think all of those come together. And when I meet sort of groups of artists, I tend to see that they know each other and they work well together. And that's what you see in a place like Sheffield now, where I think actually there is that vibrant, interconnected ecology, and I think that's really, really important. It's really important we have big anchor institutions like the theatres, because I think they provide spaces for people, and they provide spaces for people at all stages of their careers, and it's also really, really important the work that's done with building the next generation. So, isn't it fantastic that a young person in Sheffield can see this film and know that it's been created here by a creative team based here, and that they could do the same, because we need to show people that they can do that stuff in their place.
Great. I mean, that's very compelling. You've actually reminded me that we have a talent executive based in Sheffield. We have the Film Audience Network. We have Network, which is the talent initiative attached to that, and we have essentially a talent spotter based in Sheffield who will be overseeing all of those things that you talk about. Goes to the spoken words evenings, and we'll be seeing the new works at Sheffield theatres and so on, because there is just so much going on, and we can't be missing out. Anyway. Caroline, I want to come to Screen Yorkshire, because I think you can start to paint a picture about the economic value of production in general. So what I'm assuming is that you want people to come to Yorkshire and shoot here, not just because you're going to create jobs and raise some money for the area, but also, there's a longevity to that, because maybe people will want to go on holiday to Whitby Bay after seeing Phantom Thread or something like that. Can you help to paint a picture about what are you doing at Screen Yorkshire?
Yeah, I mean, I think the advantage that Screen Yorkshire has is that, and consequently, I hope Yorkshire and Humber have, is that we as an agency bring together lots of different parts of the filmmaking ecology. So we have a private investment, a commercial investment fund, so we can invest in production, but we also support skills development, we have diversity programs, we have talent development programs, we have locations and production support. So it sort of operates as a one-stop shop to bring production into the region, but also to support production from the region. And I'm a great believer in, you know, picking up on what's been said before, that actually private sector and public sector investment can sit really comfortably alongside one another, and in fact are totally reliant on one another. Because when you look at something like Jamie, you know, that has come out of a, it's a commercial project, it's got, you know, it's got proper studio investment in it as a film, but it's come out of a, you know, a really long journey of public sector investment, you know, both in the theatre but also in Warp Films. So Screen Yorkshire's had a really long relationship with Warp Films in terms of investing not just in individual films, but also in the company itself in the very early days when it was first starting out. So I think that there is a real case for seeing that public investment in the creation of companies and the creation of IP. But then when you look at the incoming production, what you need is the public investment in the infrastructure. So, you know, we will invest in big productions coming into the region and see the regional benefit from that. But those productions only come because we've got great skills, we've got great people, we've got great locations, we've got great facilities, and we can provide the support that those companies need. So I think that there's two ways in which the public sector investment, you know, needs to operate along private sector investment. And I mean, the value of the screen agencies to Yorkshire and the Humber, you know, it's a £1.1 billion turnover. That's huge. That's really, really huge. And so, you know, Caroline expressed the economic arguments so eloquently earlier, and I can only say that, you know, I would absolutely back those up on a regional level, and I think, you know, we definitely are sort of ahead of the game, you know, in terms of our share of production.
Yeah, I mean, I would completely agree with that. And I think, you know, I said to you when I was preparing for this panel, and I wrote you all individually, and I said to you, you know, it's forgive my ignorance, is Screen Yorkshire involved in Jamie? And you were like, actually, we're not. And that's okay, because I always feel like we
didn't need to be.
You didn't need to be.
Because
that's
actually that public sector investment early days, I mean, that just absolutely proves the argument. You know, on something like Jamie, it's not necessary. We step in where money is needed, even though we operate on a commercial basis.
But there must be a confidence, sorry to interrupt, but there must be a confidence of the investment that Warp have received, or the other productions have received for, you know, the budget of, or whoever's paying for Jamie, which we'll come on to, you know, to feel like, no, Yorkshire is a very safe place for us to shoot and invest this money.
Yeah, I mean, I think productions do come to Yorkshire because they, you know, not just because we put money in, but because they know that infrastructure is there. You know, they can talk to companies like Warp and say, what's it like to shoot in Sheffield? And Warp has always been so committed. Full disclosure, I did used to work for the company.
Oh yeah.
but Warp has always been so committed to making, you know, producing stuff out of the region, to say, why can't we do it here? And that's why, you know, the announcement of the new funding, I think we have to show our own confidence in our own region in order for other people to look from outside and say, yes, you know, they believe in themselves. And I think that's that's what Warp has always done, is said, you know, we believe in ourselves in a company, we believe in this region, in working in Sheffield, in working in South Yorkshire. And it's not just about bringing benefit to an individual city. I mean, I know Jamie, you know, she shot in Stocksbridge, you know, it's not just happening here in the city centre, you see that benefit and those repercussions far more widely.
Yeah, I don't know when to slip this in, but I have to say, like, a bugbear of mine, when we get scripts and projects sent to us, I really hate it when things don't have a sense of place. I know people like play it as a virtue, but they're always like, it could be set anywhere. Opening scene, just an everyday nondescript town, and I hate that. I always think things need to be grounded in place in order to, have that audience engagement to,
I get sent scripts all the time, which, are this is set on Dartmoor, this is set in Wales. It's like,
Where?
Why? Where's the compelling argument to shoot it in Sheffield then?
No, absolutely. Dan, thanks for coming. I hear it's a bit busy in your house today, up the road. Sheffield Theatres, they're an Arts Council NPO, or a National Portfolio Organisation. What does that mean?
We're part of the Arts Council's national portfolio. That's a simple answer. So we are regularly funded by the Arts Council. We get £1.2 million. It's 9% of our total income. We are publicly funded by 11%, so 2% comes from Sheffield, and the rest of our income we generate ourselves.
And presumably, it's an investment, as Darren's talked about, so you have to do things with that money that's come to you. So do you commission? Was Jamie a commission? Do you develop things in-house? Do things progress? Like, let's assume I don't know anything about the theatre, because I don't know anything about the theatre. Do things progress through your various theatres up to the Crucible, or what happened? Talk us through it, and tell us how long did it take as well.
Yeah, I think people always are surprised about how long it takes. So Jonathan and Tom and Dan came to us in 2013 with this idea and said, you want to watch this documentary as well? And over that time, we kind of developed the project to get so excited about it. In 2014, we committed to commissioning the work. So we said, go off and write it, complete it, work on it. We paid every year for a 2-week workshop with a big company as well. And it got to the point where we were really excited about the project, and we knew that project could happen on stage. Sheffield Theatres doesn't like to put the new work in its smallest space. We are out and proud about it, and we try and do things in the right space for the right production as well. And Jamie needed to be on the main stage, on the Crucible stage, which is a 1,000-seater, a deep thrust, so the audience are on 3 sides. And it's we're about being up close and personal, and I think Jamie is about being up close and personal. There's no doubt about that as well. So it was really, really terrific. So the show opened in, I've got my notes, I can never remember the years, 2017. We did the production in, that's right, isn't it? Yep, February of 2017. And because the production was of scale, it's a big production, unknown title, a story that we set in Sheffield, but Jamie wasn't from Sheffield. He's from Bishop Auckland. And so we sort of, the writers transferred the show to Sheffield as well. And so we did a 10-day run, which is a quite short run for us. We were kind of butted up with other commitments as well. And we thought, well, let's give it a go. Let's see what happens. And, maybe one day we'll bring it back or something like that. Famous last words, really. But I think I was talking to my colleagues this morning, just reminding ourselves of the journey. It was a hard sell. There's no doubt about that. So we working really, really hard. We rehearsed for 5 weeks, built the set, made the costumes, all that stuff that we do to make a production. But we hadn't sold many tickets before the show opened. And one of the things that we do in Sheffield, which I'm really, really proud of, and it continues as well, we do a public dress rehearsal. So all the tickets are, you make a donation. Free or ish, you make a donation. And so the last dress rehearsal of the production is open to the public as well. And so people just turn up. You can't pre-book, so people queue from the morning. And when I drove into Sheffield that morning, drove past the theatre, it was like, ooh, wow, that's a big queue wrapped around the whole theatre as well. So you knew something was interesting here, kind of going on as well.
Young people. Was it young people? Because they don't book tickets. It does.
No. This is about people who want to see something first. This is about people who can't afford a ticket as well. So it's about access really from our
So
point
it was
of view.
really supported by the community from day one in Sheffield.
Yeah, it really was, and it wasn't until we did that last public dress rehearsal, and I was there that night, and the audience just went crazy from the first minute to the end, and it just went mad. And then the next day, the rest of the run went from a very low start to selling out as well. So the whole run completely sold out. We couldn't extend by that time because of the next project as well. So it was really, really exciting. So Sheffield people kind of took it to heart. And we all spend a lot of money on marketing and selling things, but actually that was sold, what I would say, Rachel will kill me for this, she's here, it was about word of mouth. There's no doubt about that.
And in terms of the audience that you started to see come out for it, I mean, I'm presuming eventually it hit everyone and played to a full quadrant, but was there a driving force of a particular audience that kind of helped to build that word of mouth initially?
Yeah, I think it was just about that group of people the 1,000 people who saw the public dress rehearsal just did the best job for us. I think amongst that audience, there was quite a lot of family groups, and that surprised us. We didn't expect that. It's quite adult, some of the themes perhaps kind of in the show as well. So there were family groups and quite young children. We were a little bit nervous of that, but actually, that's sort of definitely kind of paid off. So actually, it's become a kind of family show, and that still is very much the audience in London and wherever it is as well across the world.
Are you able or willing to tell us how much money was spent on development back in the day originally?
Yeah, definitely. I think it probably before we get into the production budget, but probably by the time you've added up the initial commission and then the kind of cost of the workshops and the developments as well, it must be in the region of £40,000 to £50,000.
Okay.
And then we put the production on, which the costs kind of go up on that as well. So yeah, it's sort of the longevity and the kind of faith you have in the production. It gets to the point where you've got to do the show almost to try and recoup that kind of investment. Yeah. But to go back to one of your first questions, which I don't think I answered very well, is that we also we do have a commissioning fund. So we have set out right from the word go in the organisation a kind of commissioning pot where we can commission 4 or 5 productions a year. But as you know, the return doesn't always happen for years to come as well. So we have a fund that we can do that, and when we do the production, we can repay that fund as well. So it's a really vital sort of pipeline for work.
So do you keep rights in your productions? Do you?
Yeah,
I mean, are you getting any of this Amazon money?
I wish. No, we didn't. We'll get onto the film shortly. But we're really good at producing theatre. And we'll let other people do the films and stuff like that. So that's what we do, is we produce theatre. So we have the rights in the stage production, not the rights in the film production as well. So, we had like a bidding war for the production to take it to London, which never happens. Oh, wow. We had 36 different producers that wanted to take the show from us. And we went with Nika Burns at NIMAX in the end, because she's also one of the producers that owns and runs her own theatres as well. So we knew the show could happen quicker as well. And Nika and her team, Lawrence, have really, I think, cherished that production. And it's on in London. We started the national tour of it just before lockdown in January, I think it was, or February, before lockdown as well. So it played in the Lyceum for 2 or 3 weeks, which was fantastic. And now the Jamie tour is still in London for a couple more weeks. It's going to take a little pause. And the national tour is still on as well. So
sorry, are you delivering the national tour? Sheffield
No, we're working with NIMAX.
That's NIMAX.
But we are a beneficial in a royalty point of view.
Perfect. Best place
which
to be.
helps us repay the investment.
So that £40,000 to £50,000, very shrewd, all worked out well.
Well, who would have ever thought it?
Who would have ever thought
Yeah,
it?
who would have ever
point,
thought it,
it?
really? And I mean, it's given us confidence to carry on with our producing. We don't expect every production for Mark to pick up and film it for us and sell it to Amazon Prime. So this is probably quite an exceptional route. Maybe in your world, not in our world. And but we have a number of other productions, and we did an incredible production of Life of Pi just before lockdown again, and that will open in November in London at the Wyndham's Theatre again, and we will start the national tour of that as well a year later. So there's lots of exciting kind of projects. It gave us a kind of confidence, but it's not always, I think. Jamie is a big scale production, but we're also interested in and do kind of nurture more local artists as well, or to give people their first step up as well. Talent development, the kind of pipeline is all kind of key to what we're trying to do, and not just people from Sheffield, but also people from the UK. It's like who to spot.
You're not like, oh, hold on, what's your postcode? I can't accept a commission from you unless you're.
No,
fine.
we wouldn't do that.
You don't discriminate.
No.
Good, because you probably go to jail. I think it's probably illegal.
Probably, yeah.
So what's the deal? Dan and Mark, do you know each other? Like, Dan, were you like, Mark, you want to come and have a look at this one? Did you get to see it early before anyone else? Or is that the point? Is like, you're always watching this stuff, you're always seeing what's going on?
So I'll start off with that. So just to pick up on, so the first thing was, I was shooting a TV series for Channel 4 in Sheffield called The Virtues. During the same time, it was quite a turbulent production at the start, shall we say. And this multi-generational audience, I mean, I had no time to go to the theatre, but the couple of things I do is try and take my kids to school. I still like to go to the local pub on a Friday and then watch football. And all these like very diverse mix of people were saying, there's a show on, and I'm like, well, I can expect you to tell me about this musical, but these lads, like some of the lads I play football with, and it was just crazy. And Barry Ryan, who's been with Warp since the start, he saw it. He's a big theatre guy, and it was you have got to go and see it. So just by the end of it, me and Peter Carlton, the joint CEO, finally got to see it, and it was. I wasn't looking for a musical. We look for stories with huge heart. That's the first thing. And we were just blown away. And I think we had a pause on The Virtues for 1 week while we had to do some new casting. And that was just after Jamie had finished. And I contacted the Crucible to say to Dan and said, look, we can see you because we're in Park Hill.
Yeah.
And you can literally see the back of the Crucible. I was like, I think I went down that lunchtime because I only had this week of the ability, and Dan kindly introduced us to Jonathan, Buttrell, Dan and Tom. Tom was in LA, and I think within that first week, I'd met Jonathan and Dan in the office at Park Hill, which weirdly was where Jonathan was spent his childhood. And he was sat under a picture of This Is England that we made, and he just sort of said, I want it to have the authenticity of this work. And this is before the West End. This is before we knew it was going to go to a West End. We thought that was it. And as a producer, you never know if you're going to make a film for 700 grand, 5 million or 20 million. You just don't know when you start the journey. And the two things we said that really stuck to us was that we wanted to make it with the same creative team. You mentioned Bunny and the Bull. We're a big believer in first-time filmmakers. A lot of the films we've made have been people's debut films. They often then go and do the next big studio with someone else, but they start with us. And Jonathan, we made a pact with Jonathan and Dan and Tom that it would be them, that would be the same writer, composer, and director. And we shook hands. And that was like, and then literally sort of like 9 months later, it's on at the West End. And as a producer, this was one of the, because I was still in the middle of Virtues, and we were just coming out of it. And what was amazing is I said to potential investors, Film 4 being one of them, who, we've got the rights to this show, it's on in the West End, go and see it over Christmas, we'll get you tickets. We knew that everyone had a bit of time over Christmas. Go and see it over Christmas, and in January we want you to meet Jonathan and Dan and ourselves, because we're going to see who to partner with. And then literally 2 weeks later, people are ringing up. Some people turned it down. Some people wanted to do it without Jonathan and Dan and Tom, and we were like, no, this is the same team. And then it just kind of just grew and grew and grew. But it was just thanks to be able to just literally, talk about an ecosystem. I mean, I literally was, can we do a meeting, Dan? Yeah, when are you around? Are you around today?
And had you got in there first, I mean, truthfully, or had they had any other overtures from?
There were other...
Because I'll, sorry to interrupt, but I
Yeah.
made a joke to Mark in the bar that, I can imagine the creative team behind Jamie watching Dead Man's Shoes and going, oh, these are the guys who we want. And Mark was like, yeah, we were. That went a long way because of the authenticity, which was, which is at its core in Jamie. That's why it works, is because it's so authentic and grounded in its place. So were they holding out for you to pick up the phone?
Well, we shook hands that first meeting, and I was literally on the set of filming Virtues the week after, and then they went to take it to the West End. And I know there were other offers, but you're talking about a couple of people from South Yorkshire. When you shake hands, it means something, and we made a commitment to them, and that we would. And then again, we didn't know if it was going to be a £5 million film or 20 million, who we were going to partner with, but they did and this comes back, we said to them, I said to Jonathan, I said, it will be you directing, I'll get the best team around you, because that's what we do on a film, you put a great DOP and art department. I said, we're good. What was the other important thing? It was to shoot it here. I said, yes, that's good, we will shoot it here, that's good for me, it means I don't have to stay in a hotel. And that, these things start off very, very small, and then they just grow and grow and grow. And Jamie just has this ability to have this kind of, like anything, it's a bit like, it becomes its own living thing that you just kind of like try and just guide, like you're like flying a kite with it. And it's just, sometimes the momentum is beyond my control or anyone else's. It's just happening.
So, in terms of other Warp productions, what was raising finance for this one like? Did it all happen over that Christmas period? And obviously, you've got New Regency backing this, who made The Revenant. They made these giant films. Was that your first time working with a LA-based financier? And what was the gateway to that? Was that Film 4? Was that you taking it to market?
Weirdly, that was them being very aggressive. They saw it over Christmas.
I hear they're a bit aggressive.
Yes, and I think other than one, we've had a long relationship from My Wrongs, the Chris Morris short that we made with Film 4. Peter Carlton was at Film 4, my business partner, Robin Gutch. So pretty much most of our content and early work has been supported by Film 4. We had a deal with them. In fact, I'm going to have to just pick up on one thing, like seed investment was so important. Screen Yorkshire gave me 20 grand back after Dead Man's Shoes, which allowed me to go and raise the money for This Is England and employ Barry Ryan, who saw the film first, who could just look after the business. That was when we were in a shed in the back of the garden.
I remember that shed.
Yeah, it's a great shed, still there. The Film 4, the reason we developed it with Film 4 is that I knew that they would back us with Jonathan and Dan and Tom. Whereas some of the other people that we know, very honestly said, we're not going to give you, this needs to be at scale, which is probably in excess of 50 million, and we're not going to give somebody who's never shot a film before that amount of money. And we were like, no, he can do it. And I knew he could, with the right team around him. And he's done a great job. But it was just one of those where the New Regency were just one, they had passion for it, they had the money, they had the contacts, they let us do it. They didn't. They kind of just let us get on with it. They had certain approvals, but they weren't onerous. They supported Jonathan, so Jonathan and Dan just got the vibe off Michael and Urive, who came at the time, and just sat and had lunch with them in Soho, and they were like, actually, compared to some of the other people we met at the time, you look them in the eye and you go, yeah, we're going to keep the accents. It's going to be Sheffield, and they were like, yep. So.
That's the thing. I'm wondering, clearly there were other suitors, but was there terms from that finance of beyond actual finance terms of, but I want it in Chicago and I don't want, was there any creative pressure with other finance?
There are, yes, yeah. And that's where good execs are essential, who will back you, not just actually in TV series that you work on and stuff, kind of going, can you make the accents a little, and don't get me wrong, it's important that you can understand that things don't have to be subtitled in America, which they've not on this, but keeping, like I say, that authenticity, and I do know of other companies that approached the original creative team, but also who approached us, who you could just tell they wanted to take it in a different direction. can you have, these questions always happen when you start to cast. And we were like, the biggest thing for us, which we did launch at the Crucible a year after the show, we launched the search for the cast. And I'd say, and I mean, as in Jamie, but not only Jamie, but the class, because, you know, I've got teenagers and older who've been to school in Sheffield, and we wanted it to feel like a real Sheffield class, not some kids just plucked from stage school. So we saw 3,000 people for that school, for that classroom, where I know other people would have gone, that's crazy, just you know, go to this casting director and get people who we know could do it. They were like, no, let's get them in, and we workshopped it just at the university up the road. And that, I think that comes across. So when you see them, they look like a real class in Sheffield. You know, they can swear. They're not all
it's
the
a good
most,
audience development strategy as well, always casting from schools, because they'll all come,
Yes.
the whole school and their family and so on. So you've got a guaranteed box office there as well. So, I mean, are you willing to talk about the budget for the film? Like, what did it cost? And have you got a sense of how much was spent here in Sheffield as well?
I have that on my phone.
Oh, look at that.
Thank you, Niall, for that this morning when I forgot. I mean, the budget was started off at 15 and became around the 20 million mark. A lot of that,
your hotel room.
yeah, a lot of that was quite a lot of that was COVID costs, because we did,
Right.
you know, finishing it. The post-production took a lot longer than we anticipated. We had to do some pickups. Every film, even Dead Man's Shoes, which was 700 grand, had reshoots and pickups. So you always need them. That was very difficult because we shot a huge scene. We had to quarantine the kids. Right in the heart, just literally, I think it was August that we did it. So we were still in this like crazy thing where
Had the kids stop growing as well, because, you know, this...
Well, like, that's the worst thing with doing, trust me on This Is
costumes don't fit
England.
anymore.
When Tomo, it's coming to that actually, was the lead in This Is England, we did pickups and his voice had broken.
I remember that.
Yeah. Luckily with this, it was just shaving Max a little bit, twice a day, not just once. I mean, these are just rough, but these are, 700 jobs created, over 50% was Yorkshire and surrounding regions. We filmed in an old factory for 9 months in Goldthorpe, which is sort of South Yorkshire, near where I grew up. It was just a brilliant place for us to film, so we gave a lot of money there. Non-film specific spend, which I think is really important if we're talking about ecology of things, which was 12 million pounds. Hospitality and catering, over $1 million, not just mine. Travel and transport, over $1 million. Construction, over $1 million. That's local suppliers from wood. You know, we built 12 sets in the studio. Music and performers, 2 million. Locations, just can we come and film in your house? Can we use your garden? $1 million. You know, so sizable chunk of money in the region. And just have to say one thing: we're still here, and so the money that we got from we've reinvested that in what I will hope to be the people who can take Warp Films to the next stage, you know. So it's all about, this summit is all about what you use the next bit of money for, like Dan was saying. It's really important that you don't just give money, especially as we're levelling up. The amount of times over my 25-year career that you see somebody who's just got a desk because it gives them access to some regional spend, and there's never anyone in it, just piling up. You really do need to sort of look at investing in people who, so the talent doesn't drain away to London or wherever, or to Hollywood, but there is genuine incentive and directives to keep it going. And so for us, that's the most important thing now, to look forward to, you know, what can we get from Jamie? How can we, you know, like, I did a thing with some kids the other day on Radio Sheffield. It was just amazing how, like, kids going, actually, we can do this. You know, we can do this. They'd find out that I went to a comp, you know, I was born in Donny, you know, I'm not some posh, privileged kid. And they go, oh gosh, you know, some of the cast, yeah, we can. Actually, it's not unachievable. It's not this kind of thing. So that's important to it. And I think that's why.
And it's such a great time at the moment, because production has never been busier. Everything is so busy, and I don't think that that's a short-term thing. I think that's so all those kids who are saying, we could do this, who maybe a few years ago might have been, we can do this, but I've maybe got to work on a few short films for free for a couple of years before I get anywhere. They're going straight into jobs.
Yep.
So, I mean, we're having people coming from training schemes, and they're going straight onto productions and then onto another production and another production, so that the in spite of everything that everybody has gone through, I think we just really have to look at that opportunity of the future, because it's really there at the moment.
You're absolutely right. Today is the 10-year anniversary of us starting the Film Academy initiative, which obviously takes place all across the UK and teaches 16 to 19-year-olds film skills. And traditionally, it's been about becoming a writer, director, what is a producer. But now it's much more wider craft skills as well. And, there is, in the last couple of years, I mean, these kids are getting jobs, immediately. They're turning down jobs. They're earning, like, genuine money. And it's and that's the last couple of years. That's remarkable. The new series of Sex Education starts today on Netflix. And the director of this series for a few episodes, Ranyaro Mufo, she was a Film Academy graduate 2 years ago. She's directing a Netflix show now. It's like there are jobs, right now because there's interventions. But Mark, to your point, I mean, it's I'm glad you've raised that about leveling up, because it's I think, I mean, I don't want to do you a disservice, so I hope this doesn't come out wrong, but I think it's always been so important for you to be here. I think that's, national institutes, we want to invest in places that aren't London and Soho, and you've always had that absolute belief and commitment to it. And so you are like a case study for us. So I just, I hope you recognize that and understand that. And two, I don't know whether there's anything else you want to say on that. Like, I noticed the BFI logo was on the end roller, and I mean, I have been busy, but I don't know why it's there. Like, why is the BFI logo on the end of it? Like, what has public funding, I mean, are you aware that, and is it true for me to say that public funding has allowed you to stay here?
Without question. I mean, without that public money, like I say, and it doesn't have to be a lot, especially when you're in the first couple of years of a production and you've just made a film, you're exhausted, you're trying to get the next one on the ground. That thing of, invested in, and when I say talent, I mean staff as well. Skills are not just sort of directors and producers. You look at Jamie tonight, the credits, there's like about 600 people on the credits. There's only one director and one writer. And I do talk, and it's like, you've got to invest in, there's a lot of jobs there. In the electrical department and in the art department and graphics, and I think Peter and Paul, so the people who did our logo that looks amazing, that's what you'll see tonight at the Crucible, like they're Sheffield company. It's more than just sort of one direct investment. So the BFI was obviously we had partnered on Warp-X, but we got some development one from I can't remember what it's called. Help me out, but it was Vision Award, yeah.
Okay.
So we had a Vision Award. Now that allowed us to diversify in our content, and the thing is about development is for everything like a Jamie, there are 10 things that we've not, at least 10, probably 20, that we haven't got off the ground. And that's why that seed money is just so essential for this, and all the time, So I would say, like those little bits, and I think I heard somebody talking about grants before, those little bits of seed money on new businesses when cash flow is really tight, is just, that has to keep going.
I didn't realise with the Vision Awards we lock you in for life, and you have to
Yes,
show
you
up
do,
and
yeah.
get to the end of time. That's quite ruthless. Obviously. I like that. But no, the Vision Awards, for those who don't know, basically it's it's aimed at new companies all across the UK, and it pays for you like as a salary, but it also gives you a development slate and freedom of that slate as a new producer. So off the top of my head, in the last round, Duck Soup, based in Leeds, they had a Vision Award. So it gives them the freedom.
Luna Lander, who were based in Sheffield, had a Vision Award. So yeah, there's been several actually.
Well, it might not be so easy for Mark next time then, will it, to phone up Dan? Dan's like, well, I've got everyone else on the line now. Good. I'm not getting any questions. I don't know if this is broken or if no one's submitting any questions. But there is one that I don't think was asked or answered before, and I think it's a good one for Darren and probably me. But how best can the national arts and creative agencies support local authorities centre culture in their policies? And I mean, I think this is a good one within the, there's a lot of live conversations about this right now, and we're always obviously making the case for culture, but what's the best way? Is it days like this? Is it, actually having some evidence and case studies?
There's lots of different ways. I mean, one of the ways we do is we work with local authorities to develop cultural plans in their places, and that's great. It's great to have a plan. I always, that question of what do you want to be famous for is really important, because as a national investor, we want to be able to invest strategically and to know not everywhere can have everything simultaneously. There simply isn't enough money. So knowing that is really, really important. But I think also it is about having those conversations, and it's about saying, what is the aspiration in that place? How can we co-invest? How can we deliver it? And, we are not the only investor. And we always say we don't want to be the last investor in a town either. So having local authorities who remain, when you add together museums and libraries and arts organisations, the biggest investors in this country. And it's really tough in local authorities right now, the funding decisions people are having to make. And I'm full of admiration for those local authorities who really understand the role that culture can play in their places. And often they're places actually where the cultural brief is also held by the same person that holds the economic brief. And I always find that fascinating, that they actually see the linking of those two things. And then it's what else can we do for people in those places? So, for us, I think, we've talked about, mentioned briefly earlier, people's mental health, people's well-being generally. And that's really important. We've seen that in the last 18 months. What's actually losing the ability to come into places like theatres and museums and galleries and art centres, actually, we can see what that takes away from a place. And so I think actually that's become a very compelling argument for putting it back in. And as it is important that we see levelling it up. It is important that we actually go into places and we make it better than it was before the pandemic. We've learned lots and we've seen what we could have. And I want to see that, for me, levelling up is about making everywhere better. It's not about a deficiency. It's about actually making it more sufficient and even better. And I also think that there's no reason why our big towns and cities around the country can't become national centres of excellence in different things. I think it's really, really important. And, it doesn't have to be. We need a strong capital city. That's really important for us on the global stage. But at the same time, there's no reason why things can't come from other parts of the country. Creatively, we want lots of different pathways, lots of people with different backgrounds. That's really, really important, because for me, creativity happens is actually when you smash together different people from different backgrounds. If everyone's exactly the same, then you don't get creative. I mean, these guys make stuff happen. And, you don't want the same bunch of people with the same background all the time. You want that difference. And out of that difference is when the sparks and the magic happens.
I mean, on that point, the only thing I'd add is let's make sure we build cinemas as well. I think cinemas are very important and improve well-being of everybody wherever they live, as evidenced in the case for the Culture Recovery Fund. Don't forget about cinemas. Build cinemas.
I mean, one thing I'd say, and that's really interesting, which is in terms of some of those places where we've got that kit that does the live broadcasts from cinemas of films. What's really interesting there is a desire for people to go into really interesting cultural spaces to watch things, and they enjoy that, and it's about that coming together as well. And cinemas and independent cinemas perform that just as much as theatres do, and they may well be the big cultural institution in their place, and that's important.
Definitely. I've got a difficult relationship with National Theatre Live. I respect it. It's fine. I'm going to leave it there.
But it's a great way of seeing something.
It's a great way of seeing something.
If you're sitting in Cumbria, it's a long way to go to the National Theatre, and you can see that on your stage. And I think there's an audience for it there, and it's really powerful.
I'm not arguing with you. I completely agree. Dan, I mean, I think Darren touched on something there. In terms of like who has permission, or who might not think they have permission. But I mean, it sounds like in terms of when Jamie was brought to you as a potential idea off of the documentary, that these are all the kind of, they're ticking all of your boxes. There's nothing there that, there's plenty there that a commercial funder would probably say, I don't think so. But for you, that was exactly what you wanted to see, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's sort of our bread and butter, really. You know, we exist to make bold and brilliant theatre and make it for everyone. And this was a kind of prime example. And I think how we've developed, I think, since Jamie, you know, we now have a talent development department. We now work much closely together as a city through the Sheffield Culture Consortium. We have a new work department as well, which we managed to fund through some individual sort of subscriptions as well. So we're looking and scouting. You know, you talked about the talent development person you have in Sheffield. You know, so we're kind of on the lookout as well for spotting what the next thing is. As well, you know, we produce theatre. That's what we do, and that's what we're interested in. That's our bread and butter. But how these projects can transfer, kind of into. We had a whole series of plays, new world premieres like Life of Pi, and then The Last King of Scotland. And I said to Rob, who's the artistic director, I said, we've got to stop doing film titles now. Come on, you know, we've got to kind of look at what the next is. And I'm really pleased. I think since Jamie, we've commissioned another 10 productions, of new work, and we've also presented we've commissioned 7 and presented them, and 3 other kind of world premieres of work.
How many has Mark optioned so far?
I've been to see quite a lot of them.
We've got you back at the theatre now.
Yeah, I mean, I've been to see. It's just, and that's the thing. And you mentioned music, and I know there's the top. I mean, obviously with Warp Records, it's not just film, TV. They kind of all interlink. In fact, the pub across the road, Rutland, was a melting pot of creativity. Like when I started when the Workstation and Showroom was first built, it was the Culture and Industries Quarter, which was when I graduated from Hallam. It was so important to have that investment and these hubs that are not just about buildings where you can work and the rent's not extortionate, but actually where you can then go and meet a musician, a record label owner, Designers Republic. I mean, it was just back in the sort of 90s. It was electric here. And then you come out and there'd be some amazing band because the best producers of music were working at Fon. And so that's what you talk about these places. That spark literally can come from anywhere. And this is where that investment is so important of that new stuff and places where people can go and hang out and meet other people. And not just meet other people to spark ideas, but it's tough when you first start off, and you need someone who can just pick you up now and again and sort of like help you get going, or somebody come and helps you on your short film that you're making. I mean, that's really essential.
Yeah, and I mean, it's amazing that you've got that here, and I mean, like, you know, I'm sure you're aware of how much you've, you know, the pure existence of Warp and the commitment of Warp to Sheffield has allowed that to continue, you know, and continue to happen. So I'm going to wrap up, but so Jamie, what time did it launch on Prime today? Was it like 8 a.m. everywhere?
Well, my niece in Sydney was texting me. I think it's one of those. To be honest with you, it's just been such a whirlwind of a week. I believe. I mean, I woke up this morning, saw Max and Jamie Campbell on BBC Breakfast, and I just went to check if it was on. You know, and it was on. So I guess it was from the 17th, from when it's a bit like when you watch New Year and you start at Sydney Opera House and you go across it. That's like Jamie today.
It's making its way. And it is worldwide, is it, on Prime?
Yeah. like worldwide. So,
Yeah,
sort
I mean,
of
that's
240.
amazing.
I didn't even know there was that many countries, but apparently there are. So yeah, looking at Parson Cross.
I hope you haven't sold yourself short then, if you didn't realise how many countries there were. But I mean, it is amazing. I get asked all the time about like streamers versus cinemas and so on, and I don't think it's binary. You know, I think, you know, and also I'm continuously fascinated by the rise of tech and the. Sorry, this is going to be a bit of a ramble, but you know, whoever historically, when you look at Hollywood, whoever is in charge, whoever owns the studios and so on, is whoever is actually kind of the dominant power in the world. And now you've got the tech industry is there, and I just think it's so encouraging for us as an industry to see them turn their heads towards film, because now, you know, we are having these moments with Jamie where, you know, these premieres and these takeovers, they're doing an amazing job for it. That, you know, I just don't know if we would have seen this or got to experience Jamie in this way otherwise. So I'm all in.
No, I mean, look, the pandemic, it's 80. You know, we thought we were going to be released last year, and with a very different release plan, and then you sort of like, you know, and what's amazing though about, and this, I guess this coming out, is that I have had messages from people, and I've seen them online, people go, they're still not, you know, they're either not close to the cinema, but they can all tune in at the time where still things are slightly, and not, I mean, we're okay in this country, the cinemas are flourishing and should be in that, but in other parts of the world, they're not quite there yet. You know, and that's really important for global things. So I think there's going to be a bit of a roller coaster for a while, but then, like you say, I've spent so many times in this cinema, and we owe it. Warp Films owes so much to the showroom that, they're really important. And I'll be the one in Doncaster soon with my Auntie Sandra.
Good. The Savoy will be there. All right, I'm gonna leave it there, but I hope that helped to paint a picture about everything I said at the beginning that I was aiming to do. If not, I'm sorry. I tried my best. But, you know, I want to thank all the panelists. I think that was really insightful. Thanks for sharing so much. You know, you kind of, gave us all the info there. I'm surprised. So bank it, take it away, and I don't know, have fun. Thanks, everyone.
So immediately I feel like I want to mix up the geographical regions. All the Barnsley are sitting together, go figure. Work that one out. Welcome, everybody. So nice to see, can I see everybody? So old friends and new friends I don't know yet. So, well, what I wanted to, I think I won't get you to introduce yourselves because your names are up there, and you can, I've given people the brief to big themselves up, not themselves, but the work they do, and talk about the stuff they're proud of, and you use the platform, so that's been the encouragement, and we're just going to see where it goes. I also said be as naughty as you want, so I'm hoping people take me up on that. So I wanted to start, and I'm going to do that one by one, just so everybody gets a voice before we dive in. So I'm going to start with you, Deborah, so you could say who you are and what you do if you want, and what you love about being a creative in Sheffield, and we're just going to do creeping death until we get to Olivia at the end, sorry. So what do you love about being a creative in South Yorkshire?
Okay, I'm Deborah Bullivant. I'm founding chief exec of Grimm & Co in Rotherham, which is a children's arts literacy charity. We do all sorts of very magical things. You may or may not have heard of us, but you can look us up. What I love about being a creative in South Yorkshire, I'm not sure I am that creative. I appreciate creativity a lot, but it depends on how you phrase it. For me, what I love about it is the people. I get so much more from the people I work with than they give to me. And I'm very lucky that I've had the opportunity to do a lot of work with a lot of young people. We're a children and young people charity, and we nurture narratives. And I would like to have said to the funders that what you fund, you are sponsors of future narratives of young people coming through, of us. You know, if it wasn't for funding that I've been able to access initially from the Regional Development Agency that was talked about earlier for the contribution towards the local manufacturing park, well, that started what Grimm & Co is, because it gave funding to do a big research project into Rotherham's literacies. And at the end of it, there was a big political churn, and so nothing was going to happen with what we'd learned from that funding. So, as usual in the arts, out of frustration, I was determined to do something with the legacy, because we'd realised what you could do with literacies and children from the most marginalised areas. So I created Grimm & Co on the back of that. On that research, and our signature pedagogy is based on that research and hasn't changed since. But yeah, literacy, the narratives are what you change, including mine. I used to be in a job with a decent pay, and and now I'm in the creative sector.
We can call you a creative. Well, yeah.
No, it's I don't miss what I did before at all. I love what I do now. And so it's even changed my narrative, is what I was going to say. And probably most of you in here, when you think about the lockdown, when I've talked to anybody about through the lockdown, what you're looking forward to the most, there's been very little said about anything other than the cultural and arts activities that take place in the area. It's always something that fits into that category that people are looking forward to. What we do in our sector is massive. So, yeah, that's what I love about it and why I love being here.
Gorgeous, thank you. So Emma, same question for you. What is it that you love?
Okay, I guess I'm well grounded in the area that we operate in. So I'm from Barnsley entirely thoroughly, and I'm very lucky to work with a team. We run Underneath Stars Festival, a Greenfield festival in Barnsley, annual event, and we did manage to run this year. Yippee! We were successful in the Cultural Recovery Fund, so that enabled us to run this year. The festival is a community interest company, a not-for-profit, but then I have another hat where I'm director of Pure Records, so that's a commercial record company, and we are set up to look after the music of Kate Rusby, who is a Barnsley folk music artist. So yeah, two hats.
And did you say what you love? What is it that you love about that?
Do you know what? I just love all of it.
Yay!
But I guess through the festival, what we are able to do is showcase Barnsley. People, it was a real surprise that first year that that people came to the site and embraced the festival. They were like, oh my goodness, is this Barnsley? So all of those stereotypes, all of those things that you think, for goodness sake, you know, it's like professional, amazing music, all of the things that we stand for, like, and a beautiful part of the world. So they were like, yeah, great. That's what I love about it, that the change of the stereotype.
You're giving me goosebumps, I've got to say. I love asking people what they love about creativity, and people just come alive with it. Sue, how about you?
So a bit like Emma, really. Emma's liking to showcase Barnsley, change perceptions. I like to do that as well. And also, I really like the opportunity to be working in this sector, because I'm obviously not the one who gets to do the creativity, although I might do that in my spare time. But I'm the person who tries to make those opportunities and help people to be able to be creative, and also change communities, change places, give people opportunities. So that's what really makes it a difference for me.
Yeah, just that tiny thing of changing places. Brilliant. Emma Cooper, I'm scared to ask.
I think it's mindset. So the thing that I love about Sheffield, I'm Sheffield, born and bred. Very Sheffield. Wow. His mindset is that if I can't do it, I suspect you can. And if not, you're going to know somebody who can help me, that can sort it out. So there's always somebody at the end of the phone. We've worked together a lot in various different settings. I think the thing that I've missed the most in the last 18 months is this. I've missed events, and I've missed the work that all of you do. I work behind a computer. Computers unlocked my creativity. Clive Sinclair dying yesterday really caught me because my ZX Spectrum was the reason why I do what I do for my job. Oh, God. So, yeah, mindset.
I love it. Brilliant. Nathan, so we're getting closer to home. We're coming Sheffield, safer way.
Yeah, so for me, what I really love about the arts in the city is actually working with a lot of the marginalised communities that don't get the opportunities that these big institutions would normally give. I absolutely love being able to connect with them and seeing the actual world-class creativity and skills and talent that they have. A lot of them are unsung heroes, and I'm really passionate about championing them to make sure that actually they get the same deserving platform as other demographics in the city historically have. And yeah, I'm just here just to make sure that, you know, the art stays with the people.
Yes.
That's right.
Say it again. Art for the people. Olivia.
Okay, tough to follow. So I think my favourite thing is, you know, coming from Doncaster and working with creatives in Doncaster, is seeing, like you say, sort of that sort of like raw talent that they have, that they don't necessarily get the opportunity to, you know, they don't get the funding, they don't get the opportunities that other more established people would get, but we're working with Doncapolitan and being able to sort of shine a spotlight on those people and champion them and give them the opportunity to collaborate with other creatives that are in the same position. And that's the best thing about working with creatives at Doncaster is they've just got this like, you know, like if you have an idea, they're like, right, okay, how are we going to do it? Let's get on with it. And they're just so like up for everything. So yeah, I think it's just working with such incredible people that are at the very beginning of their journeys.
Beautiful. And so I was around in the 80s and we used to do music and stuff. And they always said because there was no money, because Thatcher had, you know, done what Thatcher did, that actually that's why we got so good. That's why the DIY scene just blossomed. And it sounds a bit like that's happening in Doncaster. Can you tell me a bit about Art Bomb? I know this much about it, but I'm fascinated.
Yeah, so Art Bomb, I think it was the second festival that they'd done, but it was like a public art forum. And it was sort of a mix of both sides. So obviously we had artists that came in from different countries or came from sort of like bigger industries. And but then also on top of that, we had local creatives that had their like first exhibitions, or they were sort of having panels and they were sort of talking about their experiences and how we can use art. Trying to think of the best way to word it. How like we can sort of use. I've completely lost my train of thought, actually.
That's okay. It sounds awesome just from the bit you said.
Yeah,
and have you been closely involved in it?
Yeah, so I did Parallel State, which was within Art Bomb, and that was sort of looking at what a northern town would look like without geographical barriers. So what we did was for the sake of the event, because Parallel State has sort of done loads of events, but this one was specifically Doncaster. So for that one, we created like a faux political party. So we had like canvases on the street and they were speaking to people and asking them what they would like to change or what they thought the differences between the sort of the north and the south were. And we created like a speech that was written by Doncaster instead of us coming in and saying, oh, this is what we think that you want. Instead, it was actually saying, you tell us, and then we'll go and sort of put that in something that's a bit more accessible.
I love it. And I'm wondering, maybe you're having the same idea as me. You know, when Darren Henley said, know your story and tell it, well, maybe we should do that across the city region, across the South Yorkshire region and tell our story. Because part of me is thinking, well, I've got a foot in Rotherham and a foot in, know Barnsley a bit, don't know Donny very well, but I want to. So maybe like we could pinch that idea and do something, across. I wanted to ask about collaboration. Like you've talked, Emma, about collaboration being so important, but how do we get it happening across the region?
I don't know. I think this is the honest answer. I think there needs to be an instigating incident. So like in a drama narrative, you have an instigating incident, and I think you kind of need something to hang your boots against. So Jamie, it's a very good reason to have this conversation. The other thing is making sure that everybody that needs to be involved is invited into the room and feels accepted and invited and included, and that's really tricky. But yeah, collaborating with people across sector is a thing that I've been doing a lot with my work recently, and I've been working with a writer who's currently obsessed with what's it called? Solar punk, which is like the opposite of dystopian fiction. So we're writing a imagined future where we've solved a problem, and then future casting in a positive way instead of in a negative way. And I think for the region, actually having a story like Jamie to look at and refer to as something that's a narrative that we can hang our hats against, rather than the wonderful, if slightly negative, fellas dancing in the doll queue, is such a much better way of talking about who we are as people, and it makes me so happy. Can we talk about Jamie?
Let's talk about Jamie. Did anybody see the show? Has everybody seen the show? Did you see it?
It's so good.
Did you guys see it? Are we literally the only people who saw it?
I cried my eyes out for days after as well. I think it's seeing people singing with a Sheffield accent, making like the writing is so spot on. The best friend, she's so articulately kind of and well-rounded, and that just unlocked something for me that just made me really happy and proud to be where I'm from. rather than thinking about, you know, we're from the north. So I spend a lot of time talking to people all over the world, and they just naturally assume I'm from London. And I don't dissuade them of that thought because it's just easier. But actually having a narrative that we can say that's who we are and that's where I come from is really important to me.
Yeah. Well, and I guess it's important. I mean, we were talking about Rotherham beforehand in the bar, Tom, and so I was brought up in Rotherham from the age of 2 or 3. I can't remember, but and I said, "How is it?" And you said, "Well, tell me what you said."
Well, right now, if you go into the town centre, right now, it's not looking great, being honest. But there is hope. There's change coming very quickly. One of the things that is big about Rotherham, if you Google Rotherham, you know what you're going to get. You're going to get J-Report, children, stuff from years ago that came out in a report that's absolutely right that it's out there. But that's how people see Rotherham. That is its new DNA, as people see. It's not, and the children don't want it to be, and they don't see that as their town. They see their town as something very different. So a few years ago, a few children pass it over to the young people and it'll always come back. And talk about collaboration, my goodness. Some children created the Embassy for Reimagining Rotherham, and they reimagined Rotherham. They went out into the streets and they were consulting with the general public, and they came back to me and they said, "Deborah, what's Woolworths?" And I says, "Well, Woolworths was this... Yeah. Well, was this place that you used to go and it was great?" And they said, "Why?" And I said, "Well, you used to get pick and mix." "Oh, you mean like Wilkinson's?" Yeah. "And you used to get Ladybird books." "Oh, you mean like the workshop thing and Waterstones?" "Yeah." "And you used to get clothes like Meadowall?" "Yeah." Well, all those things are already there at Meadowall and Retail Park. Why do we need that in our town centre? Why isn't our town centre a place where people learn about each other's cultures, where you come together to celebrate your town, where it's the hub of that town? And they created a manifesto based on this, because they said, all these old people are always talking about Marks and Spencers. You've already got enough for them, surely. So they created a manifesto on what they wanted in the town, and that they then gave us that as the blueprint and said to us, "We want you. This is your call to action as the grown-ups in the area with all the power. We want you to create Rotherham as the children's capital of culture. We need to turn this around. We don't want people saying, 'Oh, you're from Rotherham.' We want people to see Rotherham as a place where children love to be, where children have grown up happy and enjoyed being there. And we want the narrative to change. And we don't want you to Google Rotherham and see what you see. We want you to Google Rotherham and see Rotherham's the children's capital of culture." So in 2025, it will be. That's brought a lot of corporates together, artists, collaboratives. We've just made it. It didn't exist, but Rotherham's making it happen.
I'd love to hear that, Sue.
Yeah, I'd like to come in actually, because if you come down to our town centre today, as of last week, we opened our £200 million investment in the town centre. So obviously we're really, really proud of that. But what I'm proud of is the fact that it's giving people of Barnsley something they never had. They didn't have a good town centre. It was, really busy, but it was a concrete monstrosity, to be honest. And now it's absolutely top quality, gold, glass, fabulous paving, but it's going to have restaurants. There used to be about 2 restaurants in Barnsley. You couldn't, you went to one or the other, and they're both Italians. So now it's going to have loads more restaurants and lots of places to go, and culture is also going to be right at the heart of it. So we've got all our museum service right across the borough, 5 big museums. We've got the Civic Arts Centre, sorry. And we're going to have culture right in the middle of that town centre. So people who wouldn't go to culture, people who perhaps never would have thought of it, who might go shopping or, go out to do bowling or whatever, will be able to experience culture right in the heart of a centre. So we're going to have a digital experience a satellite museum and a new gallery right in the heart of it. So I'm really excited to see how that footfall transfers, because we're still in the lower quartile just of participation, and you know, we really want to make sure everyone in Barnsley gets the opportunity, you know, to experience culture and benefit from that and the impacts it can have. But I just want to say something about collaboration, actually. Do you mind?
No, go for it.
I missed my cue earlier. Because I think we've got £1 million coming. You know, that was announced right at the beginning. So we need to get our act together and start collaborating, because otherwise we'll all be spending things in silos. And we really need to get the most out of that. We need to grow that money. You know, use it as a lever to bring in more and do something with it that will really impact and show that culture can lead the recovery, because we have still got a case to make in South Yorkshire. Other areas are much better at it than us. We're quite far behind. There's only 4 authorities. What have we been doing? You know, we really, really need to get our act together here.
I couldn't agree more. There's a brilliant question I just want to bring in and see what people think of this. So keep them coming in. Well, it says Sheffield Creatives, but I think we could read this across South Yorkshire. So South Yorkshire Creatives are very insecure and lack support for others. How do we get rid of the fear and jealousy and encourage support of peers? And I think for me that links to how do we put aside, you know, how do we find common purpose, not differences? And I think you're right, put our efforts together to access the money and do amazing things with it. So
we've still got a case to make to the city region. We still have a case to make to our own city region. And thank goodness for Kate and Dan Jarvis, who are really pushing that and getting that £1 million for us. But if we can't make that case to our own region, how can we showcase all of our region to the country? And we you know, we're punching below our weight at the moment. We really need to. We've got amazing things here, and we really have got all the ingredients to. And I think this is a real catalyst, Jamie. So a real opportunity.
Well, let's hope so. And I wondered how. So we heard Mark talking about the pub, you know, the Rutland, and how that was such a kind of catalyst place where people did bump into each other with a pint and all sorts of things happened. How do we recreate that? I mean, not everybody wants to go and sit in a pub, but, you know, how do we make what you were saying, the moments where we get together? Like, what would you love to see? If you could design it, if you could, you know, have the manifesto, what would it say in it? For collaboration and getting together.
Well, we're designing it right now at Theatre Delhi, to be honest. First and foremost, take a genuine interest in your communities and your people. Make sure that you go into those communities, find out from those communities what it is that they are wanting, what art they want to see in their communities, as well as what art they want to see in the city centre. We're setting up artistic practices in those communities as well as in the city centre, so they feel they're actually represented on their doorstep and in the city centre. Make sure that if we do come together and collaborate, we truly do collaborate, and it doesn't just look like one demographic is at that table. It needs to make sure that it's diverse, and that is in terms of race and ethnicity, that's in terms of ability, that's in terms of LGBTQIA plus representation. Everybody from that community, from those communities, needs to be present, and they need to have an equal, if not even more powerful say than us lot that are holding the purse strings, as per se, because actually a lot of that money is their money, so they have the right to decide how that's being spent. We shouldn't be gatekeepers and think, oh, well, maybe they would like it. No. If you want to know what people really want to have their, well, to be represented, you talk to them. You know, it's not rocket science.
And you help them make stuff as well, not just be consumers of stuff. It's like, because one of the things I'm really interested in is how young people come up through, you know, and see the kind of things we do as viable careers. I mean, most of us probably just fell into it. And there's a question here about, which I love the wording, how can we keep young creatives fearless and develop opportunities for play and exploration? I mean, that's a great question. Anybody got any thoughts about young people? Let's ask
Well, I mean, just
Olivia.
to sort of carry on from what Nathan was saying about sort of showing up for each other, and also making sure that everything that we're doing is led by the communities that we're wanting to represent. Like, for example, this is about Jamie, and it's LGBT, but there's not any organisations that are LGBTQIA+.
Exactly.
Here right now. And I mean, you know, that's just so that we know for future reference where we can do better. And, you know, I think sometimes it's about holding up a mirror to ourselves and going, oh, well, actually, no, we can do better in this thing. And rather than sort of getting bogged down by that, just making sure the next time it's better.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what you're saying about the gatekeeping and the who holds the power, and for me, it's always been about putting, giving my power up so other people can pick it up and have it. You know what I mean? And that does mean admitting mistakes and listening to feedback and all of those things. But I think for me, that's what makes for rich conversation. If we're all just kind of nodding politely, what's the point? We might as well be at home doing it. So room for disagreement and conflict and, all those things.
I think that's essential. I have been invited in the past to sit on panels to talk about City Region, and my involvement in those conversations hasn't lasted very long because, in my opinion, lumping 4 cities together just because they're close doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to get along. So I have feelings about Rotherham and Barnsley and Doncaster, being a girl that was brought up in Sheffield, and the outskirts of Sheffield, which is very close to Barnsley, and we used to get teased relentlessly that you are actually in Barnsley. And I think
that was a bad thing.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of preconceptions between all of the various areas that you need to smash. There's also lots of preconceptions about, working class and our role in culture and the relationships between those things. A lot of the research that I've been doing in the last year, directly linked to museum and heritage, has brought up it's a framework for working called Of, By, For, All, and it was set up by a woman who runs a art gallery in, can't remember, but you can look up Of, By, For, All, and Santa Fe, thank you. Nina Simon, go and buy her book. It's flipping awesome. And by including the community in what was put into the museum, by including the community in what events were run, by including the community in board meetings and inviting them around the table, they not only, I think she tripled their income in 5 years and massively grew. The MAR, that's it. And I think that kind of approach, from a commercial point of view, you can't ignore it. What they were saying about, Mark spending all that time investing in youth in this city being in that film rather than just going to a drama school. It means all of their friends and family are going to go and buy a ticket. They're all going to get the DVD. They're all going to watch it 75,000 times. And they're going to fully invest in that piece of art. And I think as a group of cities that are lumped together geographically, having conversations where we include everybody is really important.
I see lots of people nodding, but it's not as easy as I was thinking. It's not as easy as just opening the door and going, well, we opened the door and you didn't come. So
you've got to invite people, and you've got to give them enough time to come as well,
or do it in different places, or that kind of like the stuff you're doing in Rotherham. I'm thinking about not just communities, but sector communities, like genre communities as well. So your folk, I mean, it's a close community, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, just listening and reflecting on what you're all saying, there's a different level of collaboration for us. And a bit of it is, as a small independent business, it's been a really difficult couple of years, 18 months, but you get your head down and you become more insular because you're more concerned about how are we going to survive? What is going to be the end of this? What does it look like? So the box is littler, and actually there's a lot of talent and a lot of support and a lot of good practice to share on a professional level. So not just the communities and extending our reach, but just lifting your head up and saying, okay, yeah, I'll go to that event, or I've been invited. Okay, I'll leave that. I'm really scared to leave that, but that's okay, I'll leave it. And I think that is really important. So more of this, more conversations, broader conversations with invites that are as broad as we can possibly make them, but somebody like just patting you on the shoulder and saying, do you want to come, is different to something landing in your inbox and saying, come to this event. It's just like, I don't know what that is. Being able to lift your head up and take a minute to have a conversation across the area is really important.
Absolutely, and I like the way you were linking that to better outcomes. That because actually we're, you know, the cult of busyness. We're all so busy. We're all so damn busy, aren't we? But there's a reason that you do these things, and it's not, you know, some of it's financial, but some of it's about making the place better, making it richer, making it more creatively beautiful. All of those things, and it isn't those things without voices in it. That's what I think, for what it's worth. I've got the questions are coming in thick and fast. These are brilliant. So I'm not expecting you to have the answer for this, but let's see what you think. So how can we properly work together with this £1 million when that would only be enough to fund a very small amount of organisations across the whole of South Yorkshire? So, you know, imagine we're all sitting here from our different places and we're all thinking, yeah, mil, okay. So how do we make sure it does, that we, you know, it doesn't split us, that it unites us? Any thoughts? What do you think?
I think we do have to work. We have to try to work together, and it sounds like loads of money, but it's not loads of money, but it's a start because we weren't having anything before. So so it is a start, and I think the local authorities are going to have to play a big role because I believe they're going to be distributing that money within their own areas, and already you've got it's already in silos. I think the issue is you were talking about we need to take time to talk to communities, and you know, you both brought that up. I think all three of you brought that up. But all these agendas are happening so quickly. There's often not the time to talk to people, and that's the wrong way around, in my view. And particularly like all this stuff that's coming out from government at the moment, you know, levelling up funds, all this money, all having to be put in at such a timetable that you've not had the chance to ask the community what they want. And then the other thing is, a lot of it's about capital funding, so they're, you know, investing, building lots of things. We also need a lot of revenue money, so that you can invest it in communities and in programmes. And we are, the one thing about that £1 million is it's not just going to be going into capital; it will be going into revenue programmes. So it's how can we get the most out of all of that. But also, I think we'd be missing a trick if we weren't using it to showcase the impact and value of culture.
Well, and that's on my list. Let's talk about that, Nathan.
I think as well, we have to be mindful of this whole concept of time and things taking time, because that can also be used as a massive distraction. As a person of colour, I have experienced that so much with organisations. It takes a long time to steer a ship, when actually it doesn't really take that long to say, okay, I tell you what, you go out into that community today, talk to them and find out what they want. You know, bam, it can happen in a day. You know, so it depends on how badly you want things in terms of how quickly how long something takes. COVID has shown us that. We were all used to a way of working, and it felt like overnight, all of a sudden, everything was online, and we were used to working like that. So we have to be really mindful. This is a time for us to hit the reset button and set new standards, and not be like, oh, it takes, because it doesn't. You know, some things do take time, like capital investment and stuff, that can, but engaging communities doesn't take nowhere near as long as we're misled to believe it does. So I think we have to be very mindful of this whole taking a long time. Another thing is in terms of investment, like, again, this is just coming off the top of the dome right now. I need more time to think. But real talk, we need to see how we can help our creatives become entrepreneurs. We need to think about, okay, how can we upskill our creatives to generate income so they become more self-sustainable, so not having to rely on public money. You know, we need to look and examine new business models, new ways of working, new ways of generating income, so we can be powerhouses rather than just this culture where we've got into, where we're just relying on Arts Council. Real talk, where's my guy right now? You know, we're here having this panel discussion, but like, in fact, out of those cats that came before, I can't really see any of them here. You know, so really and truly, if they were that bothered, they would have been listening to what we have to say as well. You know.
Word. Olivia, you couldn't be nodding harder.
Oh my God, no! I totally agree with what you're saying, and also, like, I think we in the north have sort of seen the impact of these structures, and what we should be doing is, now we've got the opportunity, we should be challenging those. We should be looking at new structures, and it shouldn't be the same like top-down hierarchies that we already see. We can see the benefit of grassroots, like organisations and activism and things like that, and what we should be doing is leaning into that because we've got such a rich history with that and how successful it's been. So I think we should be taking our own models and doing something with that rather than just being like, oh, well, that works for them, so let's do the same thing and hope it works for us.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And I think that, as Nathan said, that, you know, we're having a huge kind of reevaluation of everything post-COVID. So why not that? I mean, I'm all for revolution, but, you know, what do you do practically, I guess, is the challenge for all of us, because I guess we're all revolutionaries sitting around here. We all want to do things differently because of, you know, for the reasons that we said at the beginning, why we love this work, why we love doing what we do. There's a question here which I think kind of links on in my mind to that. So what more can local and regional government do for the creative industries in the region? So how do we partner? You know, if we want to remake things, what roles do they play? If they, you know, they're here today, some of them. What are we saying? Go on, Em.
Highlighting how important, so everything that Caroline said earlier, highlighting how important culture is to everybody, and how it's as a group of towns, cities and towns, I don't know, culture's like underpins everything in everyone's lives. So the council and the authorities actually talking about culture in an embedded way. That first question was from me. I think that Leah, who's here, who currently works for Rotherham Council, previously was at Leeds Council. And she did a huge amount of work embedding culture into every aspect of what the council was doing. And that sends huge signals to industry, to artists, to individuals about how important culture is. And I think that that's something that we don't get from our local authorities at the moment.
Yeah, and I think it needs champions like Sue, if you don't mind me drawing your attention to you. And I was talking to Mark Fell, the artist in Rotherham, and he was talking about the people in Rotherham who just get it in the local authority. And I think we need those people on the inside, if you like, who also have cultural lives outside, you know, because they're people too, right? You know, they don't live in the town hall. So I don't know what's it like to be a champion?
It's actually quite it's a hard slog. It's taken me years. And the reason why I'm still here in Barnsley, I came for 3 months on a temporary contract, but we had an exec director who left really quickly after I came, and I was only going to be on a short-term contract, and I knew that at that time they were going through all these massive cuts and things like that, and I thought if I left now, there'd be no one talking about culture and protecting culture from just being annihilated with the cuts. So I thought, right, I'm staying, and really did my best to make the case. All the time, everything we do is about advocacy, and you've got to do it internally. I'm constantly having to, get members to things. I work just as hard to tell people inside the organisation the value of culture. And this morning we did have Darren Henley come round, and I managed to get the leader of the council as well to come round. He came and he sat in groups and listened to some artists talking. They were talking about what they've done with young people, and actually, as a politician, to him that was absolutely fantastic, because he's listened. He really listened, and he realised the impact of what he could do. Now, something that the artists had done, it actually saved people's lives, because children were running across the tracks in front of trains. They were going to be killed. You know, if it hadn't been for an art project, we'd have had an absolute terrible disaster, national news and all the rest of it. So he listened to that and he understood it. So you've got to constantly advocate. And I have to say, our council has, and I think it does go back to when we opened our Experience Barnsley Museum a few years ago. We built that from nothing. Everything in there has been provided by people. It was an 8-year community engagement project, so there's nothing in there that was, stuffed in the back room. It's everybody's own objects. So it's about people's stories. And it was the first thing that the council, because everyone hated Barnsley Council, everyone who worked there thought, oh, council's rubbish. They haven't got us any good jobs. We've lost all our mining jobs. But for the first time, they said, oh, the council's done something brilliant. This is great for us. This is us. We can see ourselves in it. And it was a total turning point. I think it's the first time they really listened to the community. So, and after that, we started getting more and more investment. And actually, he's now a real champion. And that's why we've got, the culture units in the town centre. There would have been shops, but for the fact that, you know, we need to have some culture in there, so that's extra investment. So,
and it's an investment of time. Deborah,
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about your experience in Rotherham of building something up over time and the relationships with the local politicians. How's that gone for you?
It's improved. It's not always been, I can say what I like because I'm not in the council, but it's now so much better. There are champions like Leanne in the council, and because of keeping pushing and pushing at the doors, because not everybody understands what we do. You know, everybody said that on this stage today. Not everybody understands it. So it's a case of those champions pushing and pushing at the door so that those people in office, those people who are councillors, can understand what we do, first of all, see the benefit of what we do and the impact on the communities that we work with, and can then hopefully start to understand that what we do does make a difference, and to everything, you know, from the economy through to the health and well-being, through to education. There'll be a strand somewhere where there's an arts and cultural organisation who are pulling things up from the rear on that. And that's what we do. And that's what we've got to get the voice across to the councils and the local authorities. So having a champion inside is really helpful. There was a long time when we didn't have one in Rotherham at all. Nobody attached to it at all. Things are definitely improving for us. For me, having that champion inside and those people there who do understand is really helpful. But I see a responsibility with me as well. Coming back to what you said earlier, Nathan, I understand whatever I've gone through in my life, I'm in a current very privileged position and I can be a vehicle for others. And we can also champion doing that across others, and we've got a responsibility to demonstrate when that's happened, when we've had that impact, or when that impact has happened within our organisation or within the work that we do. And so I think there's two strands to what I'm saying. First of all, we need to take responsibility. We need to be mentoring, coaching, supporting those young artists that are out there that can't get a foot through the door, but we can get that foot through the door for them. So we need to do that. We need to find projects, something you said earlier about finding something that is a vehicle that we can all latch onto. That's how we collaborate. If we all believe in something that we know really works, we could all get onto as something. We can then measure, show that impact and demonstrate it as one big collaborative in a huge way and make a huge ripple that will hopefully make an impact on the funding coming out to us as well, because we've got to keep demonstrating that what we do makes a difference. It's not going to come to us unless we do, but we need to physically do it as well. As individuals, as well as organisations, we need to take responsibility for demonstrating that there's an impact in what we do. Unfortunately, that is part of our jobs. It's what we need to do.
So what do people make of what Deborah's saying? How's it landing?
Yeah, like in terms of taking responsibility, definitely. And in terms of being able to open the doors for others, definitely. And in some cases, that's stepping aside. Because what we have to remember is some people may have been in positions for years, and people's argument is, oh, yeah, but they've got a family and they've got a livelihood and what about... But you've got to remember, for every person that's been in that position comfortably for that amount of years, there's been so many marginalised people that have got families and they haven't had the opportunity to provide for their families and make those, that kind of like financial commitment. So again, people need to know when to kind of like step aside. If you're truly an ally, like... It all comes down to risk. What risk and action are you willing to take if you really want to be an ally? And that goes for the council as well. With regards to the council, there needs to be people from the community need to be viewed more so as experts. And so when you're talking to them, you need to be paying them consultancy fees. You need to be treating them like consultants and not just acting on a voluntary basis. You need to show value in those communities. You need to turn up to those communities and listen to them and act upon them. And they ain't going to trust you for time, because why would they? If you've done wrong by them for so many years, but that doesn't mean that you give up. It's like, would you give up on somebody that you held dear to your heart and you cared about? Or would you be like, no, do you know what? I know it's tough. I know you don't trust me, but I'm going to keep showing up and keep proving that I'm here. You know, it's basics. You know, it's real basics. You know, we're all human beings. Industry is run by human beings. You know, so we have to just keep viewing each other as human beings and act upon everything as, you know, you need to take a genuine interest in each other. Yeah. And, you know, then change will come, and it will come much quicker than a lot of people profess it can do.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to just plug, well, not plug because it's nothing to me, but I read the Arts Council commissioned a report from Hearts of Glass about co-creation, and the first time I read it, I was just like, this is what it's about. It's not about we'll come and rinse you for all the stuff you know and bring it back. It's about proper, genuine collaboration. So.
I just think there's an opportunity for us now, because I worked previously in other sectors, and I was working in the sports sector when they were still having to try to make the case to public health that sport made a difference to people's health. And they were trying to get all this data and evidence, and actually in the end they just said, come on, it's a no-brainer. And I think we've got an opportunity here with all this mental health issues that we've got at the moment, particularly after COVID now. Surely we can make the case of, you know, all our sectors, all the parts of culture, people engaging, people getting involved in community, people doing things and being creative. If we can't make the case now, I don't think we ever will be able to. So, you know, is that something we could hang our hat on and really go for?
Yeah, I'm gonna bring in this comment. It's more of a comment, I think, than a question. Well, there is a question. Just picking up on things that people are saying about really listening, really engaging, taking, as you said, Nathan, taking an interest. So Steve says, safe space doesn't have to be 4 walls and a ceiling and a floor. It's one person making sure another is seen, heard and valued. How do we make this happen? So I think we're all around the table going, yeah, this is a good thing. We know we've got to be with people and listen to them. How practically do we do that? Have you got any examples of things that have worked?
Well, I think we need to genuinely listen to them. We don't need to go out and say, here's something, and this is consultation. That's not consultation. You know, we need to, you know, maybe not a blank sheet of paper, but we need actually to be listening to people from the ground up. I mean, that's what I think. I think we're doing it all wrong. We're just giving information at the moment.
Yeah. And are you up to doing it differently?
Listen, do they? No. And then if they tell us something different, do we change it? So.
And well, it comes back to change, doesn't it? I mean, there's questions here about change. Where was it? Well, let's be bold. Why not? Let's ask this question. So how can we empower and fund creatives to find innovative solutions to the climate crisis? So there you go. There's a challenge. And who needs to be around the table for that? Like everyone. So how do we empower creatives to address these big, you know, the social justice agendas, the planetary agenda, all of those things that are important, mental health, the mental health crisis? What are we going to do?
I think you go and speak to the local champions, because you have community champions, and it's like saying about creating safe spaces. Those safe spaces are already there because they've already established themselves within that community. They're already somebody that knows what's going on. They're people that everybody knows that they can go and talk to. And I think the more you include people like that, and like Nathan was saying, pay them for the time, because I think a real issue that we get from councils is that sometimes I think they drive industries away because they don't support them enough. And I think if you look at the structures that are already in place and you build on them rather than being like, oh, well, actually, no, we want to do it in our way so that we can put our label on it, then I think you're just completely missing the picture.
Well, it does raise that question about independence, doesn't it? When I was listening to Caroline and Darren talking, I was thinking, and they did kind of allude to it, you know, you take funding and strings come with it often, even in the best cases, you know, those kind of constraints that come with it. So how do you operate independently and do these fantastic things you want to do and get funding for it or investment for it?
You know, with this £1 million that's coming, why don't we try to do something differently? I know that we're looking at making it into revenues and maybe making it into lots of smaller grants and things like that, so that everyone could have an opportunity. I know we definitely don't want to make it too onerous, because you know that just excludes a lot of people already. So you know, are there any ways we can just sort of pick certain sectors and say, you know, just all comers, what could you do with this problem?
Well, we could definitely get creative. There was a question way back, so apologies, I don't want to flick through it, but somebody was asking earlier about examples of good practice, like where does this stuff work already, and what can we borrow from that? So I guess that needs more talking to each other. Like, we did this was great. Why don't you do that? So you're not always starting from scratch. I wanted to go back to this question about entrepreneurship. I was going to ask you, Emma, because it seems to me that if we can empower people to be entrepreneurs, and that could be for good, it doesn't have to be for profit, it's another way of subsidising and funding the activity you do without having to go to a funder. And you run a commercial operation.
We do. It's a really difficult one, isn't it? Because people have to want to take up what you're offering. So to be a commercial concern and to be an entrepreneur, you've got to have an audience for what it is that you want to put out there. So that is what we need to convince people, or that is what, when you're starting up, you need to find your audience to present that to them.
What do you think about audiences?
I think that the two things get conflated really badly. So if you're making something for yourself as an artist, you're not thinking about the audience. You shouldn't be thinking about an audience. You should be thinking about yourself and your message and what you're saying. And usually what will happen is an audience will find your work because they'll see parity in their own lives and your message, and that's all for the good. In a commercial sense, you go audience first. You go, who am I talking to? What do they need to hear? And I think that, unfortunately, it's a really tricky line. So I work for a commercial business where we have investors. We have had investment from public money, but we predominantly have income from rich strangers. They're not strangers, but there are routes that we have taken through to get that money. And I think what Nathan was saying was about educating artists to make decisions. And it's not necessarily about all the artists becoming entrepreneurs. It's about having an understanding about the decisions they're making so that they can clearly decide, okay, I am now running a business, therefore I am going to create income, or I'm going to continue to be an artist. And then where are the organisations that are going to support me so that they can help me find that audience?
So just thinking about the music industry, you've got such... Music is that thing, isn't it? It isn't an industry. Music is music. People play music, they create music, they sing, they whistle going down the street. Music is something that is in all of us, but we've made it into an industry. So there are some artists who make money out of it, and you go back to the old patronage model, like in order to be a musician, you needed somebody to support you. So we've gone through a heyday of CDs and recorded music where people have made a lot of money for being a musician or going out and having that audience. And now we're going back to a case where that has gone. You've got streamed music, you've got a diminishing income for that music. And what will the model be like in the future? So when you talk about uptake of culture, in education, the young people have got plugged into music all the time. They are accessing that resource to the distraction of the teachers. So talking about, it's right there. So as a music industry, you have access to all of that, and it is being consumed. But as a musician, as somebody who is creating music, how do you get paid for that to enable you to continue so that you don't have to go down a different route? And if you are the young person who is consuming it, how do you see that as an opportunity for you if you are the person who has got that gift?
Yeah, absolutely. And do you know where it's taking me back to is what you said, Olivia, about let's make new models. So, my take is we're coming into the death throes of capitalism, I hope. That's my bias. But so what comes next? And isn't there an opportunity? But you're dead right. I mean, my son's a musician. People know that. And exactly what you're describing is what's facing him and all his peers, who are desperately trying to get out there and do this thing that they love. You're right, because it comes from inside. It's the change we want to be in the world and the voice we want to have. I'm looking at my clock, and then we've got about 7 minutes left. So I'm just bowled over really by this conversation. I wanted to end not on a falsely kind of, yay, it's all going to be all right, because I think we've raised some really, really important and tough topics. But I wanted to end on a kind of note of encouragement and challenge for us as the sector together, all of us. So my answer whichever of these works for you. So my question for each of you is, like, what's your biggest hope for the future in terms of creativity, culture, the arts? And what if you had a challenge for us, what is that challenge? So either or, whichever works for you. So what's your biggest hope and what's your biggest challenge? I might come to you, Olivia, because I ended with you, unless you're not ready.
Yeah, that's fine. I think that my biggest hope is that we start to sort of create an industry here, and we don't make it so that people feel like they have to leave in order to make something of themselves, and that they can grow up and see that there are people here who have done things and they can sort of aspire to that. And I think maybe sort of a challenge to that is, oh, it's gone now.
I'll come
back to me.
Yeah, I will. Nathan.
Okay. I guess in terms of hope, it would be that a lot of the artists that haven't had the resource and opportunities as some of the more heavily funded organisations or have been overlooked over the years get fair and equal opportunities, because a lot of them are seen as risk and they're not risk. And to be honest, they'd probably be able to come up with a hell of a lot more self-sustainable financial and entrepreneurial business models because they've had to do it on a shoestring. So give them a big ass budget and they will smash it, you know. The challenge is knowing when to, the challenge is to those gatekeepers to make sure you open the doors, keep the doors open, and to take risk, you know. And what I mean by that is risk within your own personal bubble as well as within your career. If you want to be a true ally, step up.
Thank you. Good, did you remember?
I remember my challenge, yeah. My challenge was to just essentially, it's like, if you're bringing things to, like, sometimes you get people and they say, oh, you know, like I brought the ballet to Doncaster, I did this and I did that. And it's like, it's all right bringing those things, but who got to see it when it was there? And it's going back to sort of gatekeeping. It's all right, you know, doing these big grandiose things and helicoptering people in, but it's also like, you know, you're excluding a lot of people and we have to really challenge that more so than ever.
Brilliant, thank you. Emma, are you ready?
Yeah.
Welcome back.
It's a hope and a challenge. Can we stop?
Praise and a grumble.
It's praise and a... Oh, yes. Can we stop...
Damn it, I should have done that.
Can we stop talking about the forks now, please?
Sorry.
No, that's it. My hope and challenge is that we park the steel industry and everything that has happened connected to the steel industry, and we say, that was lovely, thank you, and we stop. And no more, thank you.
Although those who forget their history are condemned to repeat it, Emma, as
I'm
you know.
so bored of the forks.
And also we sit on the shoulders of giants because
shiny
those
metal
people fought hard
forks.
And we're cultured people, so,
Yeah,
you know.
I know, and I think,
We'll
but I think it's about, it's a twist in the narrative, so talk about making. That's it. It's a really simple thing.
Thank you. Sue?
I hope, my big hope is we will really be able to make the case for culture, and that people will really, you know, understand the value and the impact, and people who are holding purse strings and making decisions will see that we should be getting the right amount of money. The stuff we heard earlier in the presentations, particularly from Creative England, all those stats and figures and all of that impact. You know, those are hard facts, hard economic facts, as well as all the sort of softer side, the social stuff and all the impacts that are harder to articulate. But my hope is that actually we will finally be able to make that case and be seen as investable in the same way as other industries, really. And I don't want to call it industries, but creative things, whatever we call it, because I know you don't like that word, but so that is my hope, that we will be able to finally make that case, and we can get over this constantly having to make the case, and people just really get it in the same way that they got, if you're physically active, you're going to be more healthy. You know, just make that connection, and then we stop having to make the case, and then, you know, we won't have to waste all that energy on making the case, and we can get on with doing the job. And I think the challenge is the same as ever. It's going to be very, very difficult. I think it's going to need a concerted effort to do it. And I think we've got, you talked about resetting. I think now is the chance. You know, must capitalise on it. Never waste a good crisis. So let's see what we can do.
Great strategy.
Mine is a little bit off the wall because it's music related, having had a little think. It is to do with music in school and education and opportunities, and the curriculum that is there is excludes people. It is not accessible. Musical instruments are not accessible. So change all of that and allow the young people to lead the curriculum of music in school and be their own creatives at that point in time.
Brilliant, thank you. Deborah, last but not least.
Oh, gosh. Hope. We all talked about how the cultural, creative arts industry is seen by many. And so for me, one of the things is that I hope that there's a turnaround vision of what we bring, what this sector brings to the country, to the localities, but mostly to people. And like I say, it's a call to action that we all have a responsibility to keep shouting about that in whatever way we can. I think the other thing for me is the challenge. Again, I think there's a call to action there. I've been very privileged. It goes on what you said, Nathan. I've been very privileged to mentor a young person that I saw this shining, amazing light in. She'd come into the country from Zimbabwe and at 12 was part of a huge family. And her mum asked me if I'd mentor her. And it's been one of the biggest privileges of my entire life. I was in a privileged position to put her in places that would get her seen, that talent shown, and she's really flying now. I mean, really flying. And that demonstrates, you said, are there anything that we've done, that somebody's done that can show? That demonstrates to me that if you can just be silent, go in the background, but actually just be there to support them, truly support that person, find them, support them, give them that confidence, build their capacity to just shine, they will shine. So I think all of us will know those talented people, all of us will be in a position of some sort of privilege where we can do more in that way. I think it's a call to action for us to all do that. I need to do it for more people, and I need to get everyone around me doing it for more people. And then we can bring people through and they can take over and I can get off. And that's what I need to do so that they can take over from me and be much better than I ever was. So that's my hope, that those young people that are coming through now that are talented, that we move away, like you say, but be the wind under their wings first to make sure that they can shine properly, and then we can back off and let them do it.
Beautiful. And we're ending on a Bette Midler quote, my heart. I feel a chorus coming on. Thank you so much. So I'm going to chip in, why not? I'm on the panel. So it's about the younger people for me, definitely 100%. Stepping aside, my hope is that the next time we have this panel, it's a load of younger people than me, definitely. And my challenge is, why not, next time we get asked to be on a panel, nominate somebody else instead, pass the power on. Let's have a youth panel, let's have a panel of voices that are never heard. And as Deborah says, we stand behind and encourage and support them to have their voice exactly as they want and free of fear of judgment. So yeah, just that little thing, that's my hope and challenge. I want to say, we're bang on time, I want to say a huge thank you to what an astounding panel, bold, fearless, creative through to their marrow, passionate, driven. So I think we'll say a massive thank you. Then we're going to vacate the stage. I'm going to pass over to Kate Brindley and Ian Wild to just finalise proceedings and talk about the plans for future networking and doing more of this, I hope. So let's say a massive thank you to all the lovely panel for all their contributions. Thank you so much. Thank you. Really fantastic.
I mean, one of the things we wanted to do today was to sort of start a conversation, and it feels like a conversation has been started, which is fantastic. I wanted to sort of talk about some of the things we're hoping to do in the future. I mean, I've been on an organisation called the Sheffield Cultural Consortium for quite a while, which is a networking group of cultural organisations in Sheffield. And when I first joined that was really great, because for the first time I started talking to other people who are working in culture. And after about 2 years, we got to know each other a bit and started to work together a bit more and started to make applications. And suddenly we got money to do various projects, which was amazing. And then about 2.5 years ago, something like that, before the first lockdown, I was invited to a meeting in Barnsley that I think Dan Jarvis had convened, which I think for me was the first time I'd met creative industries people from Rotherham, Barnsley, Doncaster, as well as Sheffield. And that felt really exciting to me. It felt like for the first time we were starting to talk to each other. Then, of course, there was a lockdown and nothing happened. There was never a second meeting. And so a while ago, I started talking to people from the Mayoral Combined Authority about that meeting. And I think probably got slightly overexcited about the prospect of networking across South Yorkshire. And they kind of said, well, you know, why don't we try and do something? So one of the things we're doing today is to launch something we have called the South Yorkshire Creative Industries Network, which is hopefully going to be a regular meeting across South Yorkshire in Rotherham, Barnsley, Doncaster, as well as Sheffield, for people in the creative industries, in the arts sector, in creative industries, the cultural industries. The first meeting is scheduled in Doncaster on the 21st of October, 5 o'clock at the Dainham Gallery and Library. Hopefully there's a link somewhere, it will appear in a minute, which will tell you how to sign up. We'll send you information about that. And then the plan is that there will be a set of regular meetings across our region, and I'm hoping that everybody's going to suggest topics for discussion, people you would like to hear from. We can invite speakers. But it's about getting a dialogue going, and it's about trying to move things along. So that's hopefully one of the things that will come out of today's conversation. We wanted to launch that network with a celebration. I think Jamie has provided that framework for a celebration. It's been really interesting today, just trying to pull together a few remarks, but you know, the contribution, the value of culture to South Yorkshire is immense, and it is growing. And we did focus on the economic value today, but I do want to say, you know, the value of culture is much broader, much greater than just economic. You know, the impact of health and well-being on community cohesion, on city centre regeneration, on mental health particularly, you know, all are enhanced by investment in culture. And I think we shouldn't lose sight of the value of culture is beyond economic value. We attempted to invite a lot of people from different sectors, from different areas of the region today, and we did that, but it felt like we were barely scratching the surface. There's so much talent in our region that, you know, we could have had a panel of double the size and still not represented everybody. I think one of the things we want to find ways to do, or we should be trying to find ways to do, is to unlock that talent and to offer opportunities to all our communities, to young people, and to engage with culture and creativity in our region. Now, there's an interesting conversation today about funded and commercial businesses. You know, we talked about theatre and film, games and design, music and architecture maybe. There's no real difference between them. The so-called commercial sector is reliant on the so-called funded sector. And I think there's an amazing case study with Dan and Mark talking about how Jamie came about how the public investment in talent development led to the development of Jamie and it becoming probably very commercially successful feature film. And so, that's why we've broadened it out. So it's not just the cultural industries, it's not just the arts sector, but it's everybody working in culture that is really important. One of the questions I think we should be asking is what support and investment do we want in our region? What is our ask to the funders of culture and creative industries? What policies do we want to see implemented that will allow our cultural and creative industries to flourish? We want to be properly funded, of course, but we want to be making decisions. We don't want to be told how to spend the money. It's really important that decisions are devolved as well as the money. I'm aware of the work of a lot of people across the region who are developing talent. Dan at Sheffield Theatre has talked about grassroots investment, and we are investing through Youth Film Academy and the Screen Industries Network in new talent. But it feels like there's so much more that could be done and should be done. It's been said that South Yorkshire is lagging behind, that we don't have as many NPOs, that we don't have as well-developed creative industries as other regions. And yet we know that we have the talent. So there's something not quite right there. It feels like there's something that needs to change. There's some new strategy, some new policy that needs to be made. And it's amazing that, the South Yorkshire Mayoral Combined Authority have announced new investment, £1 million. That's absolutely fantastic. We need to follow that up with our local authorities. We need to ask them what they're doing. The funders have said they're backing that. That's what they believe in. So it feels like there's an opportunity there. So the first network meeting is 21st of October in Doncaster. If you come along, we can continue this conversation. I'm just going to hand over to my colleague Kate from the South Yorkshire Mayoral Combined Authority to make a few comments as well.
Thanks, Ian. Hello, everyone. I'm aware you've been sitting there a long time. I'll keep it brief. So I was appointed as Project Director for Arts, Culture and Heritage by the Combined Authority, by the Mayor, earlier this year. And I wish I had a better title than that, the Embassy of Reimagination, an ambassador for reimagination that Deborah talked about would be lovely, because it will take some reimagining. It's a great first step that the South Yorkshire Mayoral Combined Authority wants to look at how culture is embedded in its policy and strategy moving forward, and flowing from that, its investment opportunity. And as Sue and the panel mentioned, and Dan announced earlier, there is some seed funding that the Combined Authority have found. There's also going to be further support for creative industries. So this partnership we're forging with Creative England will provide mentoring and support for creative businesses moving forward as well. So they're all baby steps, but absolutely the Mayor would be the first to recognise there's more that needs doing. It's really important that I've met lots of you already. I've tried my best to get round a lot of people. This was an opportunity for us to bring people together, and it's a treat for people to come together in what has been my first event for a long time, and to meet people and have an opportunity to hear what people are saying. It's fantastic. I want to hear more of that, and that's finding opportunities to do that and reach out further. So thank you everyone that's participated. It's been an absolute privilege to hear from everyone. And just really echoing what Ian said about that collective power and the opportunity to continue to have a dialogue. So I hope a number of you will support the network we're establishing, bring people along, get involved, say what you'd like to have happen next, because that's really, it's about listening and seeing what we could do collectively. And my role at the Combined Authority is really here to help do that as best I can within the powers of the Combined Authority. We're supporting this new regional network and looking at how we may support initiatives moving forward, so it'd be great to hear from you. I think getting behind a project we all believe in was also something that I heard from the panel, which is really important about that collaborative project that we might get behind. And certain regions are going for their regional capital of culture or whatever we think that our region wants to go for. I think there is an opportunity for us. So it'd be great to continue with that conversation with you. So look forward to hearing from you directly or coming to one of the network events moving forward. I'm also starting work with the local authorities and partners on what a strategy may look like for South Yorkshire, and we may, as a sector, want that to be a manifesto for South Yorkshire. So if you'd like to know more about that and be involved, we're going to be having some form of engagement process this year and moving into next. So it'd be great, again, to make contact with you on that. And before I hand it, Ian's just going to do some final thank yous, but I just want to wish Sue and Barnsley Museums all the luck in the world for the Museum of the Year. They've been nominated for a national and very prestigious prize. And it's for all the amazing work they've done with communities for Experience Barnsley, and all the best of luck for next week and that announcement. You're already a winner.
Okay, thanks, Kate. Just before you go, I just wanted to thank a few people who have worked really hard on today. I want to thank all the people at South Yorkshire Mayoral Combined Authority who have helped so much with organising this event. To Laura and her team, who are a wonderful events organiser. To everybody here at the showroom who have worked really hard on this event. I don't know if Joe Chakut is still here, but this all came about through an initial conversation with Joe. And so, Joe, if you're still here, I can't see anything with the lights, but I thank you. Thank you very much. And also, I'd like to thank everybody for coming, and I hope you've enjoyed it. If anybody is planning to watch the film at 6, it will start at 6 o'clock, so there's time to get a quick drink before the film starts, if you want. And there's a few people I'd particularly like to thank. Oriel, I don't know if you're still here, but you've been amazing, and thank you so much for all your hard work. I'd also like to thank Laura, who's worked incredibly hard on this. I think it's your first event since the end of the lockdown as well, so we wanted to really thank you. And finally, but not least, Kate has been absolutely fantastic and worked really hard and has been inspirational. And so we wanted to thank you as well. So thanks, everybody. Have a safe journey home. Bye-bye.